Okay, I'm here. I'm here. I made it in time. I'm not late. I promise I'm not late. Yay! Oh wait, I'm on the wrong page. Sorry there, chat. Let me fix that for you. Hey Chaotic, hey Adolphus, good to see you both. I'll check on your chats just in a moment. Again, am I missing anything? I got my water right here. I need a chair. God, this feels awkward. Ah, wait, I know what I'm missing. Okay, there we go. There we go. Woo! We are in business. Let us do some investigation today, shall we? Let's see. As a member of the faith, astrology is kind of... Oh, is that a problem? I hear astrology slander, and I came running to say faith builder shit. America proved. Oh, wonderful. I'm so glad my chat is turning into sorcery versus incantations. Wonderful. Oh, wait, that's right. Right. Oh, whoopsie. Turn that down on my end. Again, just tell me if you guys think that the volume's too low of the game, my voice, whatever it be. I'm gonna try to be more mindful of that stuff for you guys so we can get a good balance. I can't go any higher with my voice though, at least, so it's always gonna have to be the game that we're adjusting. Uh-huh. Melted mushroom. You gotta post out the coffin and shit. What the hell was I marking here? I guess the Earth Tree? Sir, I don't have time for the video. Please give me my 5K. Oh, 4K, my mistake, sorry. Apologies. Not Godwin's Whitner's face palming is utter cringe to that dab. OMG, I'm there right now. Is that so chaotic? Happy to hear that. Yeah, I came back here because I wanted to check some things out. Well, what, no, why are... Chad, am I crazy? Where the hell are these lines coming from? No, seriously, where the hell are they coming from? I have no idea where these are. Wait. 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 Are you telling me that even though the map says it's over here, the actual Farm Azula map is over there? Is that the problem? But I only see the one line, so maybe I'm wrong. Where did I mark other places? Oh, maybe Liurnia? Yeah, here we go. Okay. Okay, never mind. We found it, shit. Okay, so that's right below the highway. Actually rather funny when you think about it, because there's all this. Yeah, that's funny. Okay. Jesus, why is the merman so fucking big? I don't know, Chaotic. Can't tell you, Nardy. God's extra eyes look like they have the eclipse in them. Ooh. I've never thought about that. I'm gonna have to look into that, maybe. Let's see, what can we discover today, chat? So we got our soulless demigod here, which again makes sense that America might have a soulless demigod, at least residing here. Sorry, I should say just demigod, not necessarily soul. Oh, another one of these, huh? I didn't got these during the Let's Play. Good to know. Oh. I tried, chat. Oh. I tried, chat. Nothing important there, though. Oh, no. My dignity is kind of important right there. Please don't get me killed by a room bear because I got stuck in an invisible wall with a tree I can knock down easily. Yeah, it looks like architecture extends pretty far, too, as far as Eternal Cities go. Howdy! Hello, Xavier. Chat, you don't know how happy I am. I lost my air conditioning yesterday, and we got it back today. It was a pain in the ass, and I was sweating so much in that hot sun, but... oh, boy. We managed to get it fixed before the rain came. That repairman, I don't think he knew what he was doing. At least when it came to trying to fix the existing part. Then eventually he just bought new parts, and what do you know? Instantly solved. Now this tree's always been the curious one, right? Because it almost looks like a separate tree, even though if I had to guess right now, it's probably supposed to be part of the larger root complex of trees. I.e., it's all part of the Erd tree. The fact we have all these petals, too, is very evocative of that. And then you have the, where's the chest? I know there's a chest here. There you are. Like flower petals, flower petals, flower petals. And then it stops. God, I cannot make myself join the voice chat. My anxiety is so... oh, no! Xavier! I blame you! Okay, Xavier, add it to the list. You know what to do. You know the drill. I'm gonna be a Loki stream if I didn't die hilariously by falling off a cliff within the first hour. But yeah, Xavier, don't worry. You don't have to join the voice chat on Discord. You can if you want. I mean, I don't. Mostly because I'm just so busy with other stuff, I don't have time to be, like, chatting up with you guys. No offense. It's hard enough for me to come in and, like, write out stuff to answer your questions and things, depending on what I'm doing at the moment, so... yeah, don't feel bad. It's okay. We all have our own circumstances. There we go. There we go. God, anyway, where was I? Ah, yes. Anyway, having my air conditioning back feels so good, chat. God, how did humans survive without AC? Those were the dark times. Before the air conditioning. Oh. Gotta get used to that, chat. I get a feeling that's gonna happen a lot today. Yep. There we go. So, yes, I know. I'm the big bad Loki for you. Oh. I just prefer VC because I'm really bad at reading over text and it messes with my anxiety real bad. Plus, the chat can be overwhelming sometimes. Yeah, that's true. The text chat can be a bit crazy. You guys can use threads, by the way, if you're ever feeling like what you're trying to say or what you're trying to say to someone specifically is getting lost in the deluge. So, like, just open up a thread and talk to that person in that thread, and maybe other people will join or whatever. But like, it's fine. You can separate the chat, the Elden Ring chat, into like your little subdivisions by topic or something if need be. You don't have to like all just kind of speak there in the singular open chat room. Yeah, over there we gotta go. So I'm trying to get a sense of how big this place is. Because there's a not infinitesimal chance that this is the homeland of America. Now, I know what people are going to say, but Loki, America may be Newman, and the Nox may be related to Newman, but why would America, as a Nox, quote-unquote, look so much more like a human than, like, the dark-skinned race that we see? Well, my dear, Loki watcher, have you ever considered the fact that we don't actually meet any of the Nox of this Eternal City? And you have to ask yourself, why is that? Well, besides the fact that Estelle came through and destroyed it all, but, you know, the deeper meta-narrative reason, why did the writer decide that he was going to make sure that there wasn't going to be a single surviving Nox, compared to, say, the Lake of Rot, where he at the very least tries to show, oh yeah, before this Lake of Rot become, you know, a Lake of Rot, there was a river flowing through here, and that river is what allowed the ancestral spirit people to do their thing, right? Where there was a bunch of them that gather on the river, they start doing their you know, I don't know how you put it, tribal living type of deal, right? And we see that at the various rivers. Very consistent. And now that's the Lake of Rot, all of them are dead, except for one, who we see apparently has immunity and continues to just be, you know, trudging through the Lake of Rot all by his lonesome, right? So why don't we have that same thing here? Why did Miyazaki decide, not gonna do it here. I don't want to have a single surviving Nox here. And it makes me think, because they don't have a Nox model which would fit this area in the lore. They would have to reskin an entire enemy. And they just weren't willing to do that in this situation. I.e., the Nox of this Eternal City perhaps looked exactly like America. We have been using threads. Oh, well, chaotic. I can't help you then. If not even the threads are helping, then c'est la vie. Voice chat it is. Anyway. Because you have to understand, chat. Let's look at it from my perspective. We are in a very odd spot right now. I'm in an even odder spot because I can't seem to get rid of aggro. Who the hell is chasing me? Is it you? Is it you? Nope, it's not you. Is it you? Nope. Can I please own. You done? Can I play the video game now? Thank you. Anyway, because notice the pattern. Most of the time, the Eternal Cities build themselves alongside the ruins of the ancient dynasties which preceded them, right? So you have ancient dynasties here, 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 and over here, this is their one above ground settlement, right? Something around here. And basically seems to more or less just be an extension of Ul. I think this one's called Ul and the other one's called Uld or Urd or whatever it is, right? They're both obvious references to the city of in Sumerian. Or Uruk. Uh-huh. She's called the Eternal, right? Yes, Xavier, but the thing is, she's specifically referred to as the Eternal Queen in the Japanese version. This is why when they call her Queen Marika the Eternal, I don't put into any stock that has anything to do with her possibly being from an Eternal City. I think it has everything to do with the fact that after she got rid of the Rune of Death, she's now the Eternal Queen, right? Like, there's no more Empyrean who can challenge her rule as her replacement. She's now removed the ability for anyone to die, so now she's plain immortal. So therefore, she will be the Eternal Queen Marika. So yeah, we're putting that Eternal to the side. Though your question now explains to me, I finally now, it now clicks for me why people seem to get that idea in their head now that you made me think it over for a sec out loud. So thank you for that, I appreciate it. See, you guys in chat, and you know, I'll be honest, one of the shocking things I found about this Discord, I made it for you guys, right, so you guys could, because you guys keep coming to me and you're like, Loki, do you know anywhere where I can talk about lore and have some serious good discussion or whatever? I'm like, I'm so busy making the lore, I don't know where people go to talk about it. So, like, I made it myself, right? A nice little place where it's like, okay, you guys think I know shit? Well, here you go. You can have your own little Loki community where you can join and chat about whatever, right? But I feel like I've gotten a lot out of this. You guys are really good at helping me crowdsource information, answer questions I may have that's outside my area of expertise. Just plain come up with really good ideas worth investigating. Overall, I will have to say, the Discord server was quite the positive. Quite the net positive. Anyway, back to my point. So we see that generally speaking, the Eternal Cities are built alongside these ancient dynasty ruins, seemingly to come after them, right? And you see, like, for example, building this little sluice wall thing that was obviously used to plug up and allow the rot to spread. Where there was once a river that the ancient dynasty once took advantage of, right? So there's probably a river that flowed like this. Right, like this. Right. And now it's just all rot. The water doesn't flow here. But here's the thing. If the Nox feel the need to place themselves along the river like the ancient dynasties, then what about the fact that these rivers originate, we got once the Shifa River originates from up here. And the Ainsel River originates from here. One, there's a question. Why is there endless flows of water coming, or seemingly endless flows of water coming from this part of the map in particular? Why? Very important question. Does it come from the mountaintops? Because we never actually get to investigate what's underneath the mountaintops. But this leads to another question. And we also know that there was seemingly ancient dynasty stuff here, because there's at the very least ancient dynasty people here. So, again, another evidence of that. If so, why is there so much ice why has it become ice, right? Because there's the idea there was a lake and a river, so there was a flowing river at one point, and there was a bunch of those ancestral spirit people that ended up settling here with their trees and stuff along this river. Why does all the water originate from this mountaintop? That is such a question. It's especially interesting because it's like if all the water's originating from up here. It's also interesting how it also becomes a major source of fire too, with the fire giants and all that, and they migrate from all the way down in Caelid up to here. Yeah, just a lot of interesting questions to be asked for the lore, period. But that's honestly beside the point. Why the water originates all the way from here, potentially. In the end, it's all coming out here to form rivers. And if that's the case, this begs the very important question. Why did Eternal City get founded here at this source? Why was this so interesting then? The ancient dynasties, it might make sense because the water ties into their whole bubble thing. And their whole oracles and things from the gods and all that. What about the Eternal Cities, though? And it makes me think that the Eternal Cities were originally just settling because they were interested in the old palace ruins, but then they traced their way up the rivers, and another Eternal City was established here, closer to the source of where these rivers originate, right? So it's kind of like inching their way up all the way to eventually we get to Ordina, right? Because we know Ordina seems to be a town of that nature. A Nox town. So it's quite possible the idea was, okay, Eternal City's here, and then we'll build them up here. And I'm thinking the reason the Eternal City was built here was because, again, they were following the water, but it became really obsessed with the Erd Tree, because that's where the Erd Tree was growing at the time. And these Nox kind of became, I don't want to say heretical, but basically they became heterodox, where they weren't doing the same thing. They didn't have necessarily the pure knight obsession that these guys were. They were okay with the Erd Tree, because obviously they didn't try anything to get rid of it. And we see that they ultimately have friendly relations with Marika's people, because again, we have the Soulless Demigod here. We have the gargoyles all broken here after Estelle's destruction. So there's very clear signs. Obviously, Godwyn's corpse was allowed to be laid to rest up here. So clearly there are signs that a lot of important interactions on the diplomatic front were happening between Marika's kingdom and this Nox capital, city-state. It just makes you have to wonder. It makes you wonder. Anyway. Is it a similar reason as the waterfall in the ocean? Possibly, because this is the thing, Xavier. As far as I can tell, we don't know where all this water that's dumping out here comes from, right? Like, some of us, I think, theorize that it might have to do with, like, this spot here that's covered in clouds. That the idea is that there might be some sort of spring or something that all the water's coming out. Again, we don't see where it is. It's not obvious where exactly it's coming from. Now, one idea I've postulated is maybe it's the source of all water in the world, right? Because I've stated my position before. I think that the One Great refers to the world when it was just rock, right? And the rock, much like in Dark Souls, represents all that exists, right? But now all that exists doesn't mean all there is, if that makes sense. It doesn't linguistically, but stay with me. There's also what doesn't exist, the non-existence, right? That's the greater will. It is something which exists outside of existence. It is a will, an imaginary, again, imaginary in sort of like the mathematics sense, where it's like, you know, it exists, but it doesn't exist. In that it's sort of like this thing that exists in absence, right? Very hard to talk about this thing with the way our language is constructed. But the idea conceptually is that there is existence, which is rock, and there's non-existence, which is, you know, whatever is not rock. The greater will is that not rock. It then fractures the quote-unquote one great, the rock, with disparity. It, by sending in a golden shooting star with a beast down upon the lands between. This leads an impact crater from which the Elden Ring emerges. This eventually spawns the dragons and other beast races and and so on and so forth, and we know how it goes from there. So my theory I've postulated is that maybe the idea is that with all that disparity that comes in, not only was it obviously adding all these different aspects to existence and all that, same thing as in Dark Souls, blah, 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 but also it is introducing water, because in Dark Souls you had fog, which sort of at least gave something, so that way water cosmologically fit as an origin point if you root it down in fog, and fog represents non-existence in Dark Souls, right? But Elden Ring doesn't have that, so The idea may have been instead that the water came to be or was brought here with the shooting star. And again, we know this idea of water being heavily associated with the cosmos and sort of that non-existent world on its own. So that, again, may tie into all that. So that's one idea I've thought of for why this waterfall exists. But like you said, it might also have to do with whatever's going on up here and over here. Anyway, we got another person in chat. I'm gonna call you Bori. Okay, Bori, cool. See, this is why I call you Bori. Anyway, was the sun closer to the mountaintops? The ancient seat of the Sun Kingdom Soul was located up there with the undead skellies there in Farm Azul bearing the shield. Okay, so here's my thing, Bori. I don't think Soul has anything to do with the sun, the quote-unquote sun. Would you describe it? The ancient seat of the Sun Kingdom. Okay, first off, there was no Sun Kingdom. Well, okay, I would say yes, there is, but, like, there wasn't exactly a kingdom in the same way that we think of, like, America's kingdom as in a place with a lot of territories and different provinces and different quote-unquote cities or something, or towns that might be in there. It's called the Sun Realm Shield, but it's a sun capital. It's the capital of the sun. So we're talking about a metropolis, a big city like Lindell, right? Or, what else is described as a cap? Or the Eternal Cities, right? The Eternal Cities are described eternal capitals, right? So you have to think of, like, oh, these are big cities. These are metropolises. Castle Sol ain't that. It ain't a city. It's just a fort. Sol is also called that probably in relation to the idea of the sun because of the eclipse. It's a solar eclipse, so therefore it is Castle Sol. I don't think it has anything to do with the sun proper. I don't think that's why it has the name. I think it's purely because it's currently in lore investigating the solar eclipse stuff for Mikola. The sun capital I would place here, where Lindell sits now. So basically, before Godfrey came in, there is the Morn tribe. We're going to leave here now because I don't think I found anything of interest looking through here. So I was actually telling this to Smotown as part of his upcoming Radigan video, so this is probably good to reiterate. My perspective is that this... obviously, these are the same graves we see in Castle Morn. The implication in Castle Morn is that that's the grave of the Morn hero. So the implication here would be this would be the Morn hero's tribe, and the reason thus for his revenge and all that. Now, you may notice that we do see knights with the Sun Capital Shield here. Now, I've gone over this in past, like, I think the past few streams I've been talking about this, but I've been tracing the location of all these Skelly boys, and I'm able to determine that all of them seem to originate from these quote-unquote Farm Azula colonies. The idea being that the Banished Knights that we see in Farm Azula, though technically I haven't seen that in this playthrough yet. God, it's so funny the way I'm consuming Elden Ring content. But basically the idea is that from Farm Azula, a bunch of Banished Knights came here. I theorized this is because they were looking for Placky's god, who ran away, died to 3 fingers, and became, you know, the place of her death sprouted from the Elden Ring, the Erd Tree, and all that, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, the idea being is that the Banished Knights basically came here, they settled the area, and now, in my current iteration of my Reign of Godfrey post, I don't really go into the details of, the specifics of their settling and spreading out and all that. I just point out okay, we have Wyndham, we have the various forts, like Shaded Castle, Fort Lyde, what's the other one called? The, Caria Manor, then you have, well, that's for, you know, a little later, but you have Castle Sol, like you say, and then you have, of course, the Fortified Manor. There we go, that's what I'm thinking of. And then all of those were just basically kind of like colonies or, you know, establishments or setups or things of that nature in order to kind of spread their influence across the Altus Plateau or whatever, right? And interspersed among them are all these barbarian tribes that they're not even worth getting rid of or whatever, so Banished Knights don't bother, right? But it seems one barbarian tribe, I would argue, did seem to... Oh, that's right, I gotta kill you again. There you are. Are you done? Thank you. Can I please? It's story time right now, Mr. Skelly Boy. Anyway, but the Morn Heroes tribe seems to have gotten in the good graces of the Banished Knights and Sarash at the Fortified Manor. Now, Banished Knights and Sirach at the Fortified Manor basically work together to help build up these barbarians into a kingdom. And that's how we get kings like Ensha, who seems to be the last king of this Sun Capital Kingdom thing. So, that's my answer on the Sun Capital. That is what existed where Lindell is now. When Godfrey came through, he wiped out the capital's people, obviously, save Morn Hero. He miraculously survived. And the entire city was basically razed to the ground. The Fortified Manor was the last thing standing. We know how that went. Sirach loses to Godfrey, ultimately sues for peace, is able to basically kind of work something out so that way the Banished Knights can survive, yada yada yada, if they assimilate, or, you know, all that. And then, as we know, Godfrey becomes Elden Lord proper. They've secured the land of the Erd Tree, and now they start spreading across the plateau, taking over the land, and then they go on to fight the giants on the mountaintops, and yada yada yada. You know how this goes. So that's where I stand on this whole the Sun Capital thing. This seems to be where the whole the sun seems to have the most influence over the land, right? Because it seems to be high, but not too high as far as climate is concerned, because obviously when you go up a certain level in the sky, it usually gets colder. And that may be the idea with the mountaintops. The reason why everything's frozen is just it's too high at that altitude, so everything eventually froze. I don't know if that's necessarily the explanation, but at least it's the most naturalistic one I could come up with for why this land is the way it is. Chat, you saw that, right? How the hell did that kill me? Whatever. Elden Ring sprang from the Dragon God, or did I mishear? You misheard. I'm talking about Placky's God, not Placky as in the god. I'm not saying that there's a dragon god in terms of there's a god that is a dragon. I'm referring to the idea that, Placky's, quote-unquote, I guess, you know, Placky's consort to a Marika figure who is depicted in Farum Azula's, I assume, temple. Again, this is going back to my point I said last time on the Let's Play. I'm saying, I'm assuming this building is where we fight Malekith, just knowing Miyazaki and FromSoft's design philosophy. How they like to do their environmental storytelling and framing and all that. And I'm going to assume that that's where the whole giant Elden Ring with a bunch of, like, tentacle root things, and underneath it is a statue of a woman surrounded by wolves or whatever, and that's an obvious representation of Placky's god, and the beasts under them and all that, and sort of, like, bringing them together, uniting the civilization, blah, 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 the whole greater will giving beasts intelligence and all that, yeah, all that, you know, you get the idea. So the idea would be, okay, so Placky's god in Farum Azula. Farum Azula is located around here-ish. Like, this seems to be where Farum Azula is by and large. Yes. What is wrong with you? Go away. God, you stupid golden skeletons. I'm trying to have a moment here with my chat. So Farum Azula is like around here. Placky's god seems to leave for the plateau for God knows what reason. Gets killed, I say presumably by the Three Fingers, given that, you know, it's the one that's desecrating the grave. So you have the grave of this ancient god being set up here. The Three Fingers is obviously leaving prints on it, marks that, again, I assume the idea is that kills it, then sort of like desecrates this grave as sort of a way to kind of be like, taunt the greater will. See, we're gonna destroy everything with chaos. Blah, blah, blah. You know, that typical shtick. And then, either Banished Knights discover this and decide not to tell Placky, so they just kind of stay behind and never go back home to report it, or they never find her and they kind of just just stay behind until, you know, it's like we've been doing this for like generations upon generations, and, you know, this is now our like homeland or whatever, right? So you sort of have those events playing out, and then finally, of course, we get to the whole Godfrey and Marika thing, where then they just sort of they either kill or enslave the Banished Knights, and those who refuse to assimilate get kicked out all the way through Liurnia down to Stormvale, which again, Liurnia allows to happen because previously they were at war with these plateau colonies because they moved out of the plateau and set up Caria Manor up here. and started warring with Rey Lucaria and the sorcerers of Lascar and all that, right? So then that's where Renala steps up, unites the Academy under her banner, and with her Glintstone Knights takes over the manor, proves her full moon's power, and then establishes herself as royalty. She's like, I've taken their manor now. This is why there's a graveyard here in the middle, as if, you know, a graveyard you would set up when you're under siege, right? You don't have the time to go outside and bury anybody, so you just bury them inside the confines of your walls, right? And then later, of course, they built the royalty, then use it to build their own giant grave. This is why it's called Royal Grave Everjail. The term is actually in Japanese, the royal family graveyard seal cell. So yeah, all that. So this is the royal family's graveyard. This would probably be the Banished Knight grave, which also explains why they're using the flesh to create warrior jar stuff, right? Like, they don't care about the actual, you know, they don't care about the Banished Knights. They'll use them for parts for their experiments or whatever in magic. Anyway, but yeah, so it's like, okay, Caria and Rhea Lucaria, they're not positive to the Banished Knights. So when Marika's like, hey, I want to establish, I'm the new, I took over this kingdom and I'm kicking out those Banished Knight guys you hate. You want to allow us to build a bridge so we can kind of march them all the way down, and I can build a castle on the frontier to do my own thing. And Caria seems to be like, okay. Now, there's still, like, tensions and stuff, because as we can see here, the Lascar ruins are right here. The highway that ends up, they're traveling down is along here, but they build a buffer town of the Purified Ruins, so that way the sorcerers don't have to deal with the Erdtree people directly in this regard. So, and as we can see, that worked out, because Purified Ruins ends up converting to Two Fingers religion and all that. They even have their own little catacomb down here, which, as we can see, the sorcerers of the Lascar use in order to do personal studies, right? They set up libraries and things. They even have a hidden little chamber with the mask from the Nox that lets you, like, you know, try to resist the Greater Will and its envoys, the Two Fingers and all that. So it's like, okay, they're secretly doing treasonous shit that might piss off the Erdtree Kingdom, so they're trying to keep it really hush-hush in that case, right? But you kind of see how there's this huge tension in the air pre-Liurnian Wars, right? Because these are two separate orders, as it were, right? Like, there's Marika's order, which is limited to the plateau. You got the Banished Knights are getting kicked out because they refuse to be part of that order, and then you have this other people who are not part of the order, but they also don't like the Banished Knights, so they're like, okay, we'll let you give them the humiliation conga down through our territory. Ah, gotcha. Amazing. Thanks. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry I'm giving you guys all these super long explanations. I know it's a bit ranty. Nox Mirror Helm. Thank you, Bori. That's the item. Gosh, my goldfish memory, I cannot remember worth of jack shit, and then I go on long rants like this. Absolutely insanity. You little shit. Ow. Right. Also, just to add to the whole sun capital thing, it explains the holes. It's like, oh, I get it. There's a circular hole because it's the sun. Oh, wow. Also, there's the fact that the sun and daylight are super strongly associated with the Altus Plateau. Obviously, there's the whole golden thing. You compare the sun, and the sun is usually portrayed as like a giant, at its core, it's portrayed as a giant yellow ball, a gold ball in the sky, right? It's a blazing ball of fire, and it's gold. So you have this, okay, the sun and the Erdtree is sort of like stepped in to kind of represent the sun. This goes to my point that I believe the Greater Will is the sun. It is the source of all gold, as it were, right? Hence why it's separate from, say, the cosmos in terms of the cosmic beings of the night sky, the moon and star, the moons and stars. Moons, that's a weird thing to be having to say. You also have the fact that Langdell is called Lowdale, obviously referencing the idea of low daylight. Get it? Because the Erdtree, it's like daylight but lower than the sun, so it's Lowdale. And then you got Shaded Castle. The term shaded here is specifically the Japanese term meaning, you know, like in the shade of daylight, right? So when you're like under a tree, like the day's coming in, but it's casting the shadow, right? So it's the shadow of the sun. So it's daylight shadow, basically. So again, Shaded Castle makes sense because it's, you know, in this little valley area, you know, covered by the sun and the Erdtree. Don't get direct light on it. Anyway, moving on. Lux Ruins. Lux means light. Duh. Latin. Windham just means Wind Village, which makes sense because Banished Knights and the whole Stormhawk feather we find here. Okay, so they had Stormhawks here, along with Giants. Giants were working with them here. And then you got, where is it? Fort Lyde. it's a bit harder to tell in the English version, but the Japanese is spelt like light, except with like a D sound instead. So it's for lied. So again, much like Lux, it's like, okay, Lux, Latin for light. Now it's the English light with slightly different characters. Volcano Manor. Volcano Manor is just called Volcano Manor. Nothing really we can add there on the light thing, right? So, but yeah, more. And then, is that it? I think it's the only thing that has proper names, right? Yeah. I don't know what a Dominomo is supposed to be, so maybe someone else can pitch in and explain that to me. Oh yeah, and of course the Oriza. I've talked about this before. I believe the Oriza are Godfrey's tribe, right? And Oriza, the Japanese is Oresa, and it's very obviously a reference to Orium, the Latin meaning gold. If I think it's gold, right? Orium, I think, is gold. Yeah, I think it's gold. Yeah. Yeah, so, again, just going by the names and all that, it's very obvious that Altus Plateau is supposed to be heavily associated with the day and the sun and all that. And they do the same thing with the Gold Erd Tree and the Elden Ring and all that. They heavily associate with sun and daylight and, you know, warmth and stuff. And all of it sort of leads me to believe that, okay, the power of gold seems to originate or stem from the sun, and that the greater will is represented in the cosmos as the sun during the day. Hence why it's this so separate from the normal stars. Mike Bailey. Oh, hello. Good. I think you're new to the chat. Welcome on in. Great to see you. No, loving the long explanations. Rather be thorough. Thanks, guys. Yeah. I guess that's why you come listen to me. You listen to me be unnecessarily in-depth about this shit. But anyway, yeah, those are my thoughts currently on, like, everything I'm looking at. Again, if you join the Discord, you can read my Reign of Godfrey document that I've been posting updates. I haven't posted an update recently, unfortunately, because I've been focusing on all my Bloodborne and Dark Souls stuff. As of late, as I should. Again, I'm not technically doing anything for Elden Ring for the website, though. God, that might be inevitable at this point. Alright. There we go. So this is where our big Sun Capital boy is. Castle Sol seems to be established separately. Sol makes contact with the giants, and they become friendly with giants. We also know they seem to become friendly because they live next to the Stargazers, and they seem to cooperate with them during Godfrey's massacre of them both. So we do have signs that Sol, like, basically banished knights move in here, and they start making friends with the locals. In this case, the astrologers or Stargazers. Again, just for you guys, again, for those who are new, the Japanese for astrologer is just stargazer, you know, someone who looks at the stars. So, again, that's why you'll sometimes see the localization, you know, like the stargazers, what, legend or talisman or whatever it's called. The thing with Renala, right? And they talk about her as a young stargazer or whatever. They're basically saying she's an astrologer, right? So you got the giants, and then making frenzy here. We see the giants also at Wyndham. They seem to come all the way down because they facilitate relations thanks to Sol. That's with the, what's it called? The Tibia Mariner summoning the giants from the ground here. Similar to what we see, of course, up here at the graveyard here with the giant grave specifically, as well as, of course, down here. Again, we see all the giant corpses that are across Caelid. And when we're down here, we have the Albinaurics who will summon the giants underground here, which again is sort of like, okay, get it, because the spirits of the dead giants are here. So you have these guys who are doing the same thing down here. And all of this is where the giants were before they migrated up here to the mountaintops and pushed out the wyverns. Thus, the ice dragons, at least. Yeah, so... And we've gone over this before, so let's do this one more time. Just, again, for everyone new here, and also to help organize my thoughts in preparation. We talked about before, America's obviously got some relations going with the Nox underneath Leyndell. So you got the gargoyles, you got the demigod who was here, got assassinated and became soulless down here. You got, of course, Godwin being allowed to be buried here, right? So all of this together tells you, oh, okay. And obviously, got the Erd Tree, of course, happens to be growing here where they established the city, so seems to be the idea that you have Nox who are friendly to, or at least neutral to the Erd Tree, even though they seem to still pursue their whole night sky and, you know, all that jazz. Oh, mistake here. No, I must get out of here. Actually, I can't get out of here rather easily, so let's do that. And then you have above ground here on Langdell, we see Knox buildings here in this quote-unquote lower quarter. So in my Reign of Godfrey document, I think I use the terms upper quarter and lower quarter to describe these two areas. So the upper quarter would be these areas with the gold roofs that we see here, right? So all this. You got this sanctuary or cathedral here. So this is the Erdtree Cathedral, right? You have Marika's, bedchamber here. You have Godfrey's Elden Throne chamber right here afterward, right? It's all set up. You also see the Royal Manor. We'll show it off later. But like, yeah, the idea is, okay, this is where all the this is where the assimilated banished knights are found, right? In this building connected to the rampart. So the idea is that banished knights could join in the fighting. Kind of makes sense, right? It's like, okay, you're gonna assimilate, but we're still gonna kind of like not give you the same expectations as we would for our own, Orisa tribe. So like, you banished knights, you're going to be the ones we expect to be first to run to the ramparts whenever we need to defend the city from anything, right? So they have this direct connection point there to from their house into the walls. But then you see all these red roof buildings, which are the same style we see at both Ordina and, more importantly, Celia, which is a descendant of the Eternal, as Gauri so wonderfully puts it. So we, of course, there's this direct connection to Nox culture in the architecture here. We also can see how they have their own private graveyard, separate from the Langdell catacombs down below, right? And what's notable about these graves is they don't use pagan graves, they use the standard Cathedral of the Deep graves with the flower on top. As I've talked about before, whenever you see the flower, it tells you that it's someone aligned with the Erdtree order. Whenever it doesn't have the flower on top, it tells you it's from some sort of pagan faith that's basically being forced to do, or maybe perhaps willingly due to some other cultural ties. But basically, they're not necessarily believers in Marika's stuff, right? So the graveyard in what I call the pagan quarter up here doesn't have the flowers on top, right? It's a bunch of flat-topped graves that's had these missing. So there's the idea that the Nox of the Eternal City down here, some of them came above ground and basically assimilated into Erdtree culture and formed their own little quarter, right? It's kind of like similar to how you have a bunch of like migrating people who might form their own Chinatown or something, right? Like, you basically have your own little block of the city that you kind of you all live together, you all know each other, you kind of form your own pseudo-government there where you kind of do your own things or what have you. It also makes sense because it's like, okay, they're not used to bright light and all that stuff, so they go where the shadows are more likely to come earlier and stuff, right? Deeper sunken into the ground than, say, the upper quarter, which is like, okay, all of them get to live up closer to the Erdtree, they get to be constantly in its light more, and they have a bridge that takes them all the way to the front side over there, which of course has been lost with the destruction by Estelle and all that. Oh. Ah! No, Mr. Noxman! Also, again, notice how we don't ever actually see any Nox here. We only ever see these corpses and skeletons. Because again, goes back to my point, I am strongly suspicious that the Nox that lived in this Eternal City by the Erdtree may have been affected by the Erdtree, so they don't have dark skin like other Nox. Rather, they look more like your typical human. Because they get the same gold sunlight exposure. Okay, let's see. Best helm. No, let's see. Xavier, the Elden Star spell has a bunch of mini projectiles shooting off the main star projectile. Does that mean anything specifically? It could be. It does make me think of like a tree, how like a tree has a trunk and then it branches off into its multiple different branches, right? It does its own little divisions and things. So that might be the idea of a singular star then spreading and coming to infest the whole of existence, the whole of the universe, right? And we see this with the Elden Ring depicted in Farm Azula, right? Like, it's the Elden Ring we know, but it's a little different, and it has these long tendrils, like roots almost, that kind of branch off almost as if to kind of dig into everything around it. And you can kind of get this idea that the Elden Ring in the earlier period is, of course, bringing disparity to the entire universe of the world, so that may have been the idea being illustrated in Elden Stars. Yeah, very, very good observation, Xavier. I'm gonna have to I think I own that incantation, right? I think I might try to let's see if I can ever get to use it on my Confessor build. I gotta get that Confessor build leveled up to get to Farm Azula like I am at now, so that way we can maybe switch between them freely. Seems like the Newmen were the original people of the Eternal Cities. The present Nox seem to be of the Nightfolk entity, implied to be descendants of Silver Tears. Okay, no. This is actually something I can definitely say no. Nightfolk are separate. Nightfolk are descendants of Silver Tears, yes, but they are not the same as the Nox. The Nox are, the people of the Nox are the ones who built the Eternal Cities. So, originally, the Nox, as we know them, were, I believe, coming from Farm Azula, right? So my idea is that the Newmen originate from the stars up in the cosmos. They come down as the typical, again, the Newman in Japanese refers to Marebito, or it means something like visitors, casually, but it has this very specific connotation in religious context of the idea of you coming from the spiritual realm or the divine realm, the heavenly realm, right? Often bearing gifts, bringing joy, wisdom, bestowing wisdom, that type of stuff to, like, you know, this poor little village in this remote area, and, like, the spirit realm is, like, somewhere out in the mountains past the forest and all that, right? But that's the idea of the Newman, is that they're these beings from another world. Obviously, the terms used for outer and stuff relate to the outer gods, so there's this idea of, okay, they come from the cosmos, which makes sense because it seems like the human form originates from the cosmos. Hence, you know, Estelles and stuff and Falling Star Bees having human-like skulls as they develop. But the idea seems to be that the Newmen come from there. They, one obviously becomes Placky's god, and my current theory has been that the Placky takes on a human form. Obviously, that's where dragons start taking on human forms to match the Newman, right? And they start procreating, and this spawns the first dragon kin person, right? Someone who's part dragon and part quote-unquote human, right? Newman. And as a result of this starts what eventually dilutes into the human race as we know it, and they spread across the world for one reason or another. Now, humans who come from now both, this is also the explanation for why Newmen are quote-unquote seldom born. The idea being is that anyone can be born a Newman because you all have a little bit of Newman blood in you, but because it's such a small part of your genetic makeup, the chances of you manifesting those traits of the Newman race are exceptionally rare. So the idea that you would ever be, the idea that a Newman would be born is incredibly unlikely, but if you are born a Newman, hey, congrats, you're going to live longer than the average human. Because that's just, again, they come from the stars. So naturally, they have quite exceptionally long lifespans. But then some of the Newmen seem to betray the greater will, and again, this goes to the Finger Slayer blade and the idea of trying to resist the greater will and the two fingers and all that. And as a result, the people of the Nox get destroyed to underground. So basically, they were a people group. There were no Eternal Cities. There's never a reference to Eternal Cities, and this is occurring very long ago. The term used is, it means, like, ancient times, but, like, more literally, it's something like Great Antiquity, or Great Ancient Times, or Great Olden Times, right? So the Great Old. It's only used in two places. One with the Nox, and the other in reference to the giants taking over the mountaintops. So we're talking about the same period. I'm not saying this happened at the same time, by the way. I'm just saying that in the general same era, that the giants are taking over the mountaintops from the ice dragons, the Nox are getting, quote-unquote, banished to the underground. And as we can see, they then build the Eternal Cities. And then they start creating stuff like the Silver Tears, the Albinaurics, etc. And those Silver Tears, some of them seem to get out and eventually start forming humans, and they become the Night Folk, right? So they have, they still have a lot of traits of their Silver Tier origin, but, like, it's very weak, right? that seems to be the idea with the Night Folk and the Silver Tears and all that stuff. So they're not directly connected to the Nox, like, in terms of lineage or anything like that. The Nox seem to just be Newmen who are the way they are because, well, they live underground. And they personally, well, generally speaking, reject all things related to the sun, the Greater Will, the Order of the Elden Ring, and all of that. And as I'm saying, it seems to be the one exception might be this city, which of course happens to be established right next to the Erd Tree. Anyway, yeah, I'm really going off today. So again, we have the idea that these Nox from down here migrate. Again, we don't see this because again, this seems to be the what's left of the Eternal City that Astel directly fell there. Again, this is also presumably the reason this is here. My theory is that, again, we know that during the siege by Godric and Radon, that they tried to come through the front gate from, like, the trailers and stuff. But as we can see now, there is no city up front here. There's still the entrance, of course, but that's about it. So my understanding is it seems like Astel may have gone, boom, crashed through here, and then obviously went straight all the way down to here. And then obviously took the night sky and then ran off down the riverway all the way to here, where we find the Nox's night sky instead, right? With him for the boss fight. So then, and then obviously Morgott seems to have just been like, okay, just fill it with water. And then we my assumption is that whatever means to get between these two areas was lost with this area of the city. Like, if I had to guess, it was probably something like there was a lift or a well or something that would allow you to basically go up and down. In fact, a cool thing with the DLC is if it added this front section of Lingdell, like, you know, it's a Mikkel. If it's going to be Mikkela's Dream World, just make it like Mikkela's Dream of Lingdell, and it'll be this entire front section that we never got to explore before, and it can have the well there. It doesn't even have to lead to the Eternal City or anything. It could just be a Nox River well, and it can lead to, I don't know, like Mikkela's Butthole or something. I don't care. As long as it just helps kind of illustrate this idea we have. Anyway, we'll have to just see what the DLC gives us. Elden Beast uses a similar Stardust attack as Astel, but has slightly different visuals and explodes into gold instead of purple. You can see Astel's version by the Ash of War Bastard Stars. Yes, I recall it in the boss fight too, like the way that kind of attack goes where it's like, whoosh, and it goes boom, 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 right? So, yeah. It makes sense that Elden Beast can do something similar then, because the idea is that Elden Beast is also a creature that is from the same place as the Greater Will, right? This area of non-existence, which is now what's the word? Now formulated into the cosmos, right? Like, it's now taken that shape as a result of the Greater Will, you know, creating disparity and giving order to the universe, right? Because the idea is that the Elden Ring doesn't just go, again, and this goes to my point of the outer gods are, in my opinion, just some certain stars, which instead of governing the fates of people, like we see most stars do, they govern the fates of aspects of existence, right? So, if everything was once rock, but now there's disparity, each element of disparity wrought whatever the fire giant's outer god represents, obviously chaos, right? These various aspects of the universe are now being encapsulated in this form known as a star. And so there are stars for people, individual souls, but there's also stars for the various elements of the universe, which is also codified by runes and the Elden runes and the Elden Ring and all that. And because of that, the like, almost lost my place there. The outer gods then basically sort of create their own, like, you know, they start carving out their own, like, sphere of influence as a result of that. Just by that's sort of what defines them. Ah, damn it! Now I did lose my train of thought. Fuck. Chat, tell me where I was. Why did I start this conversation? What was this train of thought? Oh yeah, the Astel and the Astel thing. Okay, yeah. So the idea is that, okay, the entire cosmos comes together around this non-existence that the Greater Will existed in, and then the stars come into existence when it sends down the golden star that sort of creates, the idea being is that if the Greater Will is the sun, then he would be the quote-unquote first star, and that this first star sending his influence down in the form of another star, a golden star, which has the Elden Ring, which codifies everything it wants this universe to be, or at least at the start. And then that creates the various entities in existence, and that, by necessity, creates the other stars in the sky that exist as sort of like fragments of the greater, again, the greater will. The idea being it's almost like subdivisions or aspects of it. It gives a piece of itself to the universe, and that piece of itself sort of is reflected in the cosmos as different other fragments of itself. And then these fragments that form the stars or the moons in some cases. The more powerful ones become the outer gods that govern these aspects of nature. Don't know what Estelles and falling star beasts and those lesser beings would classify as, if those would be stars that would govern the fates of people especially, or if they're created specifically by these other stars as like subdivisions of themselves that they send down in order to act as their agents or something. Like, that is something where I'm wanting to do a little more investigating into. But the current place of my theory is basically that the outer gods of the cosmos only came to be essentially with the existence of disparity. And then the Elden Beast would naturally become the... How do you put it? It would naturally reflect that sort of same cosmic origin as, say, the Estelles and everything like that, right? Because even though it probably, obviously by necessity, predated the existence of the cosmos as we know it, is essentially also the origin of that cosmos at the same time. So it makes sense, if it's a vassal of the greater will, that therefore, by extension, it would serve in a similar fashion as an Estelle, which might also be a vassal of, say, another star or a moon, which itself is, again, a lesser aspect of the greater will that was created. Yes, again, sorry, it's all very rambly and ranty. This is super heady stuff, and I would explain it so much better if I could put it down on paper and do, like, a few drafts than just kind of, like, doing it live. Let's see, what else do I want to look at here today? There's so much. Oh my god, the view numbers are going up! You guys really, really want to hear me rant, don't you? Holy hell! Goodness me, what's wrong with all of you? Just listen to a guy ramble on the internet over a video game. I love you all for it. Let's see. It doesn't help us, though, with understanding America's origins. I don't want to continue on Farm Azula, which again might be another area worth investigating, so... What else could we look into with regards to America here? We don't have any items, I think, that stand out in this area, right? So nothing that we could really be like, ooh, this could be really important, given the context of the lore I've been talking about for the past hour. And I don't think there's anything down here other than generic stuff. Okay, I'll just show off the cathedral stuff then now. Anna's attack when it stabs its sword into the ground and the music cuts out then explodes, similar to Placky's nuke, but that's a lot less of an impressive explosion. Are you basically telling me that the Elden Beast doesn't put out? They use gravity magic and are weak against gravity weapons, unlike Elden Beast. They're weak against gravity. Oh, so Estelle's weak against gravity? Oh, you know what? I guess that kind of makes sense. Yeah, I guess that does kind of make sense in terms of, like, pull and push and stuff. But Elden Beast isn't. That's interesting. Maybe because it's even a stronger entity. You know, it's sort of the origin of the push and pulls and all those relations, right? Alrighty. I mentioned earlier in the stream, you know, before I really got on my rant about this idea of a cathedral. Again, this is stuff I'm actually mentioned to Smotown for his Radigan vid, because it might be worth talking about in relation to this statue, as we all know. Yes. So the idea that America, as I've talked about in the past, is very much a prankster, right? She has the mimic veil that she seems to have worn whenever she wanted to kind of pull a prank on Godfrey. Disguise yourself as a random object in the room and hiding out, right? And then be like, boo, haha, I got you, right? Or in the more vindictive sense, we can see her whimsy on full display when she decides to brutally kill the giants by impaling them on stakes of briar, right? So, like, obviously it goes both ways. It can be very, you know, cutesy. It can also be very, don't get on her bad side, right? But it's basically that personality trait is clearly there to demonstrate how America is very capricious, which comes into play when she starts going a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs after her children start dying again during the whole Night of the Black Knives and all that, and starts breaking the Elden Ring, right? So it's sort of a justification of, oh, she did something really rash and stupid. Well, she's always been kind of whimsical like that, so you push her to the edge, she might do something that brash and stupid. But the big thing is how this building, this sanctuary, or cathedral, as I said, has this lift, which takes you down here. It's a unique little block that doesn't have access to anything else. Its only notable thing is that it's got two priests there, one of whom is praying, of course, to these statues, which show the idea of the crucible / Erd tree being picked by this bald man, as represented here. Again, recall that these flowers are gold in the fortified manor, which is where the statues probably first were built to begin with. And it's being supported by an image of Sarash, which again is also synonymous with Godfrey and the golden lineage. So you have this idea that the golden lineage is supporting the Erd tree. Again, very good propaganda. You don't see it a lot, though, around the city itself. Most of it's Erd tree sentinel statues. You can't really see it from here, but mostly, you know, Erd tree sentinel statues on pillars and stuff. Obviously, you have America statues here with her little spear, showing that she's willing to defend this place because, again, it's her vacation home after her palace is built. And again, I talk about vacation home versus palace because it's not really a palace, it's more of a manor. But this building here. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, chat. Feel free to. I'm willing to adjust if necessary. But as far as I'm aware, this is the only building in the entire city which isn't sealed with some sort of weird amber, you know, whatever wax thing that is, right? Like, all the other buildings have this wax stuff on the edges to seal it so you can't open it, right? See? Here. But this building does not, and it seems to be the only one. It's in an area which goes directly to the cathedral, which leads to the bedroom and the Elden Throne and all that America lays in while she does her work. Again, this bedroom doesn't seem to be like her only place of sleep, because as you can see, she does work there. There's lots of tablets and shit and scrolls and whatever. So it's clear that she does a lot of things there besides, you know, sleeping. So you have this little kind of priestly corridor, where it seems to be this is where, like, priests, finger maidens, or rather finger readers, you know, things of that nature would live, which also explains why there's a Crucible Knight of the Siluria variety that patrols down this area. And again, as I was pointing out earlier, it explains why there's a Radigan / America well, I guess it's a America statue disguised as a Radigan statue built here, right? Because the idea is that whenever America and Radigan are walking to home to work, or walking to and from to work and back home, they could pass by this statue, same with all the clergy. And of course, the idea that America, being her playful little self, is like, hey, if you learn this fundamentalism that my husband and I are now pressing upon you, and you start learning some intelligence, you know, some rationality, you could be able to dispel this here and discover by, obviously, I'm assuming the message is a dev thing, and it's not actually lore, right? You know, when it tells you, oh, use the law of regression or causality or whatever it is, right? And then you have this message here where it tries to, you know, gives away the ghost, as it were. But we basically are being told, okay, you as a priest of America could discover, with a little intelligence, this very closely guarded secret of America. But obviously, no one would ever think to ever use the spell on this statue here, so even though there is a secret that seems to be gotten out in rumor, clearly it never became widespread. So again, America's a little playful like that. Also, the importance of this corridor becomes even more obvious when you see how there's this giant cup that's been established on this ledge here to point to this area. So again, sort of highlighting the importance of this church, cathedral, Erd tree, and of course this little residential area. Sven. Welcome, Sven. I think you're new, too. God, a lot of new people in the chat. I welcome all of you. A bit reminiscent of Loki. Yeah, exactly, right? Like, America's very much has that sort of Loki archetype of being a bit of a playful prankster, right? And it could be kind of innocent, and it can also be very, ooh, not so innocent. That's very nasty. That's almost satanic, you could say. It sort of depends on the circumstances. There's another golden star mentioned in a leather shield from Pydia, which might be relayed to the amber golden light of the stars, the polar star, which makes the others turn. I don't know if it's a golden star. I have to double check that, but I'll look into that, Bori. because there is mention of the North Star, the Polar Star. I can't remember what the exact translation was. Elden Beast doesn't use gravity magic at all. Yeah, he doesn't use gravity magic, but you're saying he's not weak to it at all, right? Which again makes sense if it might be like a stronger version of in this terms of cosmic being. But I wouldn't expect him to use gravity magic, simply because again it's the Elden Beast. It's supposed to be like this creature, you know, it's literally an embodiment of, it's an avatar of the Golden Order / the Elden Ring itself, right? Hence why it appears, you know, if I understand correctly, it appears from like Radigan's body and then turns the physical. It appears out of Radigan / Merrick's body, but it takes the physical body and turns it into a sword. If I understand this correctly, so lots of freaky shit going on. And of course, Radahn's greatswords have the biggest percentage bonus against those types of enemies. I assume you're talking about cosmic enemies like Estelles and stuff. Naturally, that makes sense, because again, if gravity magic affects them, then Radahn, who mastered gravity magic, has weapons most effective in that regard. Yeah, fascinating. Anyway, so we talked about that. So, if Marika originated from this Eternal City, so she originates from there, but she doesn't bring her whole tribe, so she doesn't seem to be someone significant in that respect. But she gets selected by Two Fingers. And maybe she has some Newman who join her above ground as, like, you know, entourage or something. She comes above ground, and for some reason she doesn't ally with the Sun Capital, the Banished Knights, or the Morn Heroes tribe. She instead gets some random barbarian, Godfrey, or Horalu at this time, to be her champion, to be her hero, to be her future spouse as Elden Lord. The Finger Reader, where is it? Where are the pouches? I figured they'd be under key items. Ah, here they are. Lord, or those attempting to become Lord by the... Oh, okay, so bestowed upon the ruling Lord, or those attempting to become Lord by the elderly Finger Reader. As the voice of the Two Fingers, Finger Readers are said to live lives eternal, and one is even supposed to have served as a wet nurse to royalty. Enya is obviously the person being referenced here, because she gives us the talisman. I think she gives you all of them, right? I think she provides you all these pouches. So she's obviously the one being referenced here. The wet nurse to royalty. Now, if I recall correctly, and I think I have this in the Godfrey doc. Oh, no, I don't think actually I have it yet, because I haven't talked too much about Finger Readers in the Godfrey's Reign doc yet. Okay. But the, when it says the wet nurse to royalty, it doesn't mean just royalty. It means specifically wet nurse to the king. And I find this extremely interesting, because it can't be Radigan, obviously. So that just leaves Godfrey. So my question is, if Enya, the Finger Reader, was Godfrey's wet nurse, what does that tell us about the history, then? Is it that she's his wet nurse, she was with him his whole life, she's still around? Obviously, because wet nurses could often be around even after the child they cared for became an adult. If she's his wet nurse, was Godfrey already an important person in his tribe, and he became the chieftain, in some ways by lineage, but obviously he tried proving his strength or whatever. And that's why he had his own wet nurse, while he was growing up as a barbarian. And then later, when Godfrey is becoming attracted to Marika, Enya is also deciding to become a spokesperson for the Two Fingers. There's a lot to think about in their history together in that respect. How that played out. Right. Now, Marika does not seem to have known about the Two Fingers until later. This catacomb seems to have been built as part of the trapping the tribe, the nomadic tribe, that were being punished for their quote-unquote heresy that good old Shabriri lied about. and sort of as a major trick to get them all to curse the area. But this would be the... Actually, no, one sec, gotta double check this. This would, however, would be the God's Grave. You can already see the obvious differences. So this is where the grave would have been. I assume if I open these doors, I'd get a better look at it, but I ain't doing that because I do not want to get that stupid. You know what? I'll get the. If I beat Melania, if I ever beat Melania, I'll get the 2 fingers to mark me. Sorry, 3 fingers to mark me. Chaos. What's the item here? I forget. I think it's an Elden. I think it's an arc rune or something. Those stupid golden arcs or whatever they're called. So obviously we find deeper depths right here. This would be Erdtree is spawning, so Erdtree spawns like around here. Eventually grows out crooked to form this way, right? The Erdtree, like, they show it here, but really it's like here, right? God, you couldn't make it any more obvious, could you? It's like, ah, look at this. Look at these bright colored rocks that magically formed around here when this hole was created. Man, I love it when my rocks just magically get brighter when I dig holes through them. Goodness me. The relic sword has the right hand out and the left arm stopping short at the elbow, which could be possibly representing the inner order gesture. Inner order. So that'd be this. That could be true, right? Because the idea is that the inside of Radigan/America is the Elden Ring, which the Elden Beast embodies, and therefore it creates a sword representative of itself as the order within, right? I have to check the Japanese on the gestures now to see how they use the term for inner versus outer. Because the term, there's 2 kanji I can think of for inner, and one of them would have this connotation of within, kind of like power within, right? And that might be the idea being done. Similar to how you have power, you put the power within. You have the Elden Ring within, which the Elden Beast embodies, and so you have the idea that, again, the Elden Ring is synonymous with the Golden Order, which is synonymous with the Erdtree and all that, right? So all of them, because, again, the idea is that the Elden Ring is the ultimate source of everything, right? So there's a reason why in trailers it's called the gold, which even regulates the flow of the stars, right? Again, regulates being the verb form of regulation, as I translate it, which is localized as order, right? So the order, the law, not really the logic, but basically, sort of like these parameters, these regulations that are defined by the Elden Ring and its great runes, regulate even the stars. But as we can see, there's this idea that the Erdtree comes to regulate the stars, and this is why Karian astrology becomes obsolete, because the idea seems to be that as the Elden Ring evolves, what it regulates and how deeply it regulates changes. Oh, I never got this item, did I? Gosh, it's always weird when I come through old areas and I happen to find items I somehow missed before. Very odd. So you have the Elden Ring governing all things, including the stars. Again, this goes to my point of the outer gods being the stars, which govern not just the fates of men, but also the fates of aspects of existence, going with the idea of the Elden Ring, again, creating disparity and all that. So again, if they regulate the stars naturally, because the stars are, in many ways, only exist as a byproduct of the Elden Ring, right? They are its creations, in a sense. In which case... Also, Xavier, add that to the list. In which case, you have the idea then that the Erdtree comes out. Obviously, there's some form of order, which is always synonymous with the Elden Ring, right? So when Corrin is saying stuff like, "Oh, the Elden Ring, the heart of the Golden Order, is right before our eyes," he's just saying, you know, the Elden Ring, the Golden Order, you know, it's there, right again, like you say, right there before our eyes, right? But he's, again, whenever, and Enya does something similar, right? When she's quoting the two fingers, there's this idea of, like, the, what is it, like, the root or the anchor or whatever? Like, it's like, "Ah, the great Elden Ring, the root or the anchor of the Golden Order," or whatever, like, anchor of all things or something like that, right? Like, when they talk about that, again, it's just saying, you know, the Elden Ring, the great Elden Ring, the Golden Regulation Order. You know, that, it's like, you know, the gold, which, you know, everyone glorifies, all living things glorify and all that for the blessings and the good fortune it brings, and yada, yada, yada. So all that is sort of bundled up there in this idea that, okay, they're separate entities in some sense, but they really are kind of all the same thing at their core. The Erd Tree only exists because of the Elden Ring, right? So Placky's god dies, and similar to how when we die, we recollect our runes by, this is actually a perfect example, let me try to get my runes right now. Much like how when we die, we come back and our runes have started spawning a tree. There's the question of, okay, what about great runes then? Okay, this is a collection of regular, small, tiny runes, and they're able to, after enough time left by their lonesome in the wake of a death, spawn new plant life. What happens then when it's the Elden Ring? And the Elden Ring, owned by, say, a god of another Elden Lord from, say, the time before the Erd Tree, the prehistoric age, dies, and then in her wake, the Elden Ring, with its great runes, would spawn an even greater tree. An golden tree of immense proportions that we now know as, of course, the Golden Tree or the Erd Tree. Okay, there we go. Ow. Ow. There we go. Oh. There we go. I was about to be like, wait, I'm gonna die. I know I can farm, but I don't want to right now. So she dies, Erd Tree spawns, her grave is being violated by Three Fingers, waiting for someone to be able to read the maddening script and become possessed by the outer god of chaos. That person becomes Shabriri. Shabriri essentially becomes the outer god of chaos himself, much like the demonic namesake. Truly a terrible entity. We see how that plays out with Marika and the Nomads. Shabriri lies, basically blames the Nomads as essentially Three Fingers worshippers. The Marika, of course, overreacts, because of course she does, and locks them all up in this catacomb with their god, quote-unquote, with the Three Fingers. Shabriri, of course, seems to get locked up with him. He gets punished by his tribe by having his eyes taken out as punishment for essentially lying. Oh my god, that is awful. For essentially lying by slandering them. But of course, that doesn't change their position, and eventually their resentment turns outward at the world which forsook them for those lies. They then basically curse everyone above ground, and that's what causes the Three Fingers to spread the Mad Flame disease. The Flame of Frenzy, as we know, gets out thanks to rats, and the first place it seems to ever get to is the mining town of Yellow Onyx, or Anise. From Yellow Anise, obviously, named one for, I think, a type of plant, right? I think that's what an Anix/Anise is. And then, yellow, of course, well, yellow, the color, the Mad Flame disease and all that, right? So then, by the time Marika and everyone realized the truth, it was too late. As we know, what greeted onlookers. Oh, what greeted onlookers of at least I'm not dead. What greeted onlookers of Shabriri was his smirking face as the eyes, as the flame appeared in his empty eye sockets. As we know, also Shabriri. Again, this goes to my idea that he is the outer god. The original Shabriri was possessed by the outer god of chaos itself, and therefore the Shabriri that we speak to is simply that outer god, using his name, since he, that's how he's best known now. As we know, he still exists, much like other outer gods who seem to be to some extent immortal, because they're the stars that govern the the aspects of the universe. You have to get rid of that aspect of the universe if you want to truly get rid of the outer god. But it seems to be that his ability to manifest is somewhat limited if he doesn't possess human bodies. So America probably got rid of him after that point and be like, "Be gone, you terrible demon!" And he's like, "I will be back." And then we have the, of course, idea of the mad flame disease spreading around because of rats. Again, rats seem to always be present when with the mad flame disease whenever we find a town or village, which is, of course, consumed by it. So it's kind of like the Black Plague, right? Very classic idea. The rats go bringing the disease around. They can crawl through they can get out of these catacombs very easily, right? So when you're talking about these catacombs here where the nomads are caught, you have rats that can easily crawl through the ground, they crawl through the cracks, they crawl through the holes in the stonework and all that, they get infected, then they leave, and they go through this entire network, and then they end up at places like Yelanis, right? Nothing unimaginable. Ani's cookies are good. Well, thank you, John. John, I love it because I don't know whether... Sometimes you have something really insightful, and sometimes you just say something that's hilariously, like, random, and I just love it. Like, it's like, I don't know what I'm going to get from you. It can go either way, always. Nothing really to say about the ants other than the fact that they have rot that they seem to have evolved around, which again makes sense because of the lake of rot outside in the Ainsel River. I'm trying to think, where else would a Newman like Marika originate? The only other thing I could think of is that she just happened to be born Newman. She didn't have any tribal connections. It was just that she was one of those rare few who, again, goes to my idea that there's a little Newman in all of us. And when they are rarely born, it doesn't mean, like, you know, they're infertile or something. Just that, well, it's very rare for for any Newman blood to manifest in your race. And therefore, much like Draconian, right? Draconian's the same thing. Like, there's a little bit of dragon in all of us, but the chances that you're gonna manifest that's probably not too likely, but Newman probably even less so. You're welcome, just keeping it real. I appreciate it, John. That's why I love you guys. Got a diverse crew here that watches me. Enriching my life, that's for sure. Hope it's enriching for all of you, too. The question is now... If she was just born randomly, then maybe she was born on the plateau. No, that doesn't make sense, though. No, that can't be. Marika has to be born in a Newman society of some sort, because she has her hammer. And her hammer comes from the Newman. So she has to be integrated into one of those cultures, right? So she can't just be a random Newman among humans. Yeah, okay. So we can limit it to... Yeah, her hammer helps us limit it to, okay, she has to be connected to the Newman culture. Oh, did you ever figure anything out with the last names? Oh, you mean with the Gideon Ofnir versus Horalu thing? No. I could not find any, I could not find anything on any, like, cultural nuance or anything. It just, for some reason, Gideon and the Luz. Ofnir and the Luz, they got different ways of separating those first names from their last names. Dots versus equal signs. Very odd. I'm not used to seeing that. Usually, a Japanese writer, you know, would stick to one or the other, right? Because why would you mix it up? But for some reason, they did. Again, maybe it has to do with the whole barbarian shtick. Maybe the idea is, like, you know, trying to show a cultural divergence of sort, but... That would have to be something that Miyazaki thought up on his own. I cannot find anything into that, and no one I know in the Japanese side knows that type of thing, so they've never heard of that, so I've never heard of that. It's just bizarre. And if Marika comes from there... Yeah, so if Marika has to come from a Newman culture... Then the only Newman cultures we know of are the Nox. And if we had to pick one of the Eternal Cities for America to arise in, it would obviously be the Eternal City closest to the Plateau and the Erd Tree. And I guess the question would be, why didn't she have the support of Nox? Now, again, this might go to the point that the Nox are neutral. Like, maybe they're heterodox in that they don't have the same antipathy for the greater will, per se. Possibly. Again, can't say that with any certainty. But it may be the idea that Marika was ostracized, or she just didn't have anyone who was willing to support her in this crazy endeavor of, oh, I've been chosen by these two fingers that, you know, our ancestors hated so much, that they would literally got themselves banished by the greater will for it, and now we kind of all shun the greater will to some varying extents. You know, with our whole obsession with the night sky and the Night Lord and all that. I'm not going to get any support from my tribe trying to go above ground and try to take over this Erd tree from these humans, right? So that may have been the idea. And then after she establishes her kingdom, she can go back to her tribe and be like, hey, look, I won. I succeeded. I did it. And then they start having normalized relations between each other, which then brings some to choose to assimilate into the lower quarter in Langdell, right? So the idea of, okay, you've proven your example, we know it, we're interested in this now, we can, you know, there's now, like, you know, there's a little safety in us, we can, like, safely, like, kind of, like, you know, get closer to this idea without, you know, risking our lives or our livelihoods or anything like that, right? So they immigrate. Yeah, okay. It's starting to come together now. He does seem to be a Nox, so maybe it's in-game cultural difference. Oh, you think God Horalu is a Nox himself? Is that so, Xavier? Or we talked about someone else. So is water in this game made out of Cosmos stuff or something? Water in this game, my take would be that water originates from the cosmos. Yeah, so water is essentially a substance of cosmic, if not cosmic origin, of cosmic characteristic. Right, the idea that the cosmos is the primordial sea, as it were, right? It's the ocean above our heads, right? If you know ancient, especially ancient Middle Eastern thought, this idea in, like, say, the Fertile Crescent, Egypt, Egypt, they have their own thing with, like, the primordial ocean, or what, you know, from the lotus, and then spawned all things and all, you know, all that, the gods and all that. The idea that the world was divided by, like, there was the heavens, there's the earth, and between them is what's known, I think if I recall correctly, it's called the firmament, which is this idea that there's, like, this layer of water, right? Now, a lot of this is anthological language, right? It's not to be taken literally, per se, so you'll often see, like, you'll see, like, diagrams trying to literally portray, this firmament, and the idea is, like, there are these windows, right, where they would open up, and that's where water would come out, like rain or whatever. But we have to understand that ancient peoples, just like today, they use anthological language, they use analogies, they use symbolism, they use words to characterize things in ways that aren't to be taken literally. They are trying to describe and encapsulate these very complex cosmological concepts. So this idea of rain coming from this concept of a firmament up above, they don't literally think, oh yeah, it's like this invisible wall dome thing that encapsulates the earth, and the you know, you just open a window and the water comes pouring out and that's the rain, right? Like, we look back at these things and we kind of take it literally because we don't have the cultural context, but as historians and archaeologists and anthropologists have looked into this, we've been able to understand, okay, like, this isn't to be taken literally in the same sense. I somewhat agree on that front that the cosmos is something similar. There's this idea that there is this, the cosmos itself is an ocean which exists above our heads, you know, kind of like how we have the terms for the Milky Way, right? Like this idea of a river, a stream, an ocean, etc. The primordial current, which means the origin flow, the source flow, it's a reference to the ideas of headwaters of a river, is this idea that there's the void of space. This void of space is like the depths of this ocean, right? It's the deepest, darkest depths, right? You know, hence the blackness, right? And from these depths originates the flow of the water and the stars from which they all fly and govern, right? So there's this idea of darkness, the abyss, in both the abstract sense and the literal watery, you know, watery depths of the abyss sense. The idea that the water flows like a river out, and eventually we get to the idea of shooting stars. So the Japanese for shooting star literally means a flowing star. So again, keep that in mind. Everything sort of has this river analogy when we're talking about stars in this universe. This idea of they flow and they move when they're moving and all that. And they're so like Elden stars is actually Elden shooting stars or flowing stars, etc., etc. Does the thing being a hammer mean anything towards her original culture? Yes, because the hammer comes from the Newman. So there's the idea that America has to have either she made it as part of the Newman culture or she inherited it from Newman culture. Now, the interesting thing about the hammer itself is this idea of, did her culture use it to build up Far Missoula society, right? Because this goes to the idea of the Newman come down from the stars. They are basically star people, right? They're these celestial beings. They interbreed with the dragons and form, like, the first humans and all that. But they also seem to unite the beasts under them. So, like, basically, we have the idea that the greater will gives beasts intelligence. But it may not have done this directly. It may have done indirectly through Placky's god. So the god and the Newman bring this wisdom to the dragons and then the beast folk. The beast folk become the beast men. They essentially hyper-evolve into this, possibly. Assuming the greater will didn't, do some divine inspiration or whatever to make them independently evolve that way. But there'd be the idea then that the Newmen are sort of helping take their knowledge of the cosmos and all these things in order to help jumpstart civilization that has the Beastmen help build the royal capital of Far Missoula. And as part of this, the Newmen may have also taken part in the construction. Okay, no Gideon. Okay, so you're talking about the idea that Gideon might be Newman. Huh. That's interesting. I never thought about that. I never thought about his race. I'm gonna have to look into that, Xavier. Do you haven't, is this something you just thought yourself, or do you know of someone who had some, like, interesting evidence to put forth for why they would think that? I'm really curious, because, again, I haven't finished Gideon's questline or anything like that, so... Very interesting. I haven't given a lot of thought to Gideon or his origins, but that's really interesting. So all the water talk when referring to the cosmos is an analogy. What I'm trying to say is, anatologically, in history, it was an analogy, right? The idea that water came from the sky, yes. The idea that, it was this dome, like the universe, the entire Earth was encased in a literal dome, and the dome had windows which would allow the water to come out. That would be anatological. That would be something where it's like, it's all metaphor, right? It's all something that's trying to encapsulate these big picture ideas. Kind of like the idea of God as, big bearded man in the sky, right? It's not something that generally Christians actually literally believe. Oh yeah, God is just, big man in the sky, right? There's a lot more abstraction there, in terms of the religious belief and the doctrine. But when you're trying to depict something as big and abstract as God, and especially the God of the Abrahamic faiths, you use symbolism analogy. This idea of, okay, God the Father. Okay, well, you try to depict him as like this big old man, and you want to show wisdom. So not only he's old, he's got a beard, typical like old man type of deal, right? You also want to show his purity, so you give him like a white robe or whatever, like something very simple and easy to recognize on that. And of course, you're trying to show, okay, well, he's God of the heavens. Well, is heaven literally this thing that's it's right here above the skin, above the sky. We just gotta, like, if we could, like, somehow, like, make a rocket and go up there, we would be able to find God up there. No, but the idea is, like, we associate symbolically the idea of something being higher in the sky, the sun, brightness, light, all that stuff as being heavenly and good, and we consider stuff deep down beneath there as bad. We associate with death and, all that type of stuff. So the idea is, like, okay, we depict God up there in the sky, and the heaven is, up above the clouds, right? So, similar idea here, it's true with ancient peoples, is what I'm trying to say. In terms of Elden Ring, there's the literal idea that water seems to comprise the cosmos. And there's all this water language being used associated with it in a more literal sense. Though, how far that goes, I guess, is somewhat questionable in terms of how does that relate to the water down here? Is all water from the cosmos? Or is there independent sources that is of the same substance as the cosmos but have independent origin points? Again, this goes to the idea, did the golden shooting star shoot down, and when it created the concept of water separate from earth, rock, did that water originate here with the star, and then it poured out into the ocean here, like we see here? Again, we have to remember Far Missoula is here, so we don't know how... if there was even a opening for water to pour out in. This is another question, right? It's quite possible that there was no waterfall originally, that all of this was all one landmass, and it's only gone now because of the whole meteor strike on Farum Azula. That's quite possible. Or the storms. Storms might also play a part there. The whole storm tornado stuff. But anyway, there's the idea of, okay, assuming that there was a waterfall there, maybe that's the origin of all the water there, and then the water in the cosmos was its own thing separate, but they're both of the same substance, so they can kind of interact or what have you. We do have this idea that, where is it? For some reason, crystal stuff originates from here. I'm trying to figure that out. Because this is where we start seeing crystal, what's it called? Crystal, you know, those plants that are you find them everywhere, but these are like the crystal version, and you find them around the water. Now, I can understand it to a certain extent. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, chat, I think my game crashed. He has the same eyes as those Nox. I mentioned this before. Oh, God, Xavier. My goldfish memory does not remember you saying this. You know what? I bet you, too. I was also very surprised and was like, oh, wow, that's cool. I gotta remember that. And then I forget. Stupid, typical Loki. Well, chat. Well, chat. We are going to have to fix this. How do I... Oh, yep, there we go. The game has crashed. It's okay. We're gonna probably end things a little soon anyway. Okay, I'm gonna have to look into that Gideon stuff though this weekend, and then make notes of it somewhere. I did not know this. I did not remember this. It's so good. All right, back to Elden Ring. Ay, ay, ay. Hey, or is I on water? Okay, so the idea of the crystal... What are they called? Crystal buds? Maybe? I think they're crystal buds, right? But the idea that there's these plants that are growing along river water from basically beneath... There we go. Don't know why that wasn't working there. Anyway, basically beneath the Volcano Manor or right next to it. And then from there all the way into the Liurnia Lake, right? So that water flow, for some reason, has a lot of crystals involved. And I'm not quite sure why. Right, so starting from here. Then the water, of course, flows from there to where, like, below where that lake is, out through the precipice ruins into the valley, which floods out into the Liurnia Lake, which has been allowed to flood, you know, all of this, right? So all of this has been allowed to flood. Basically, the entire south of Liurnia has become a giant flood zone for this lake, right? There's also I think there's a lake here, too. But at least here you can justify it because there's lots of crystals here, right? Beneath the Rhea Lucaria Academy. So there's at least an argument here that there's a lot of magical crystals here for one reason. Either because of the lake or independently separate from that, there's a bunch of these crystals. Again, not sure why. I can at least understand that, right? Like that's an easy thing for me to understand as terms of conceptually, okay, there's a lot of crystals here, so the academy's built on top of where all these magic crystals go, right? Makes sense. There's also the crystal cave. Yeah, this academy crystal cave. So yeah, it all ties together. Makes sense. But why is there crystal associated up here? Does that have something to do with all these rock formations here? If so, why is there a bunch of water here? Again, we have nothing here to kind of help us get an idea of what's going on underground. So why? Where is all this water coming from? Why is it doing this? Why? I have all these questions. Please answer them for me, FromSoft. Yes. I forget, are these the same as are these textured the same as the yellow flowers with the frenzy flame? Oh. Hello, turtle. Yeah, so you find like crystal buds or whatever they're called around here a lot. Yeah, here it is, crystal bud. So already, it's not a matter of, oh, there's crystals down here, and therefore it spread the crystal to the water. It's, oh, no, 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 no. The water itself, from up here, it has this crystal power. Why, though? I do not know. That is what I'm trying to understand. Now, I understand the general idea with the crystals and all that, right? Because there's the various crystal caves, there's the regular caves, the idea of, you know, okay, so crystallization has some connection to the stars and the cosmos. That I can understand. We also know the idea of water and stuff being connected to the cosmos, and becomes especially evident with the idea of, okay, the crystals and glintstone, which again, glintstone is basically a crystal, is supposed to be fragments or pieces of the stars and their quote-unquote star amber. So it's like the life of the stars, their life power that they send down, was rained down from the mountaintops by the astrologers, right? They're trying to make contact, and somebody succeeded and created a giant, a nebula, if I recall correctly, was the term used here. Yeah, here we go. So downpour, again, downpour, rain. Japanese has similar terminology being used to kind of tell you, okay, a rainstorm, raining down, all these words that are associated with, okay, it's like rainwater, right? So there's this huge parallel being made here, even when we don't have direct connections between, oh yeah, water rains from the sky, water has connection to magic and crystals and sorcery and blah, blah, blah. No, it's like you also have this, again, anatological language being used at the same, in parallel. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, so when it says dark cloud of stars, the term star cloud is the term for nebula in Japanese, right? So you have the idea of, okay, you create this nebula, which you can kind of see in the graphic here, right? So you have this nebula created in the sky, and it rains down all these stars, and this seems to be the idea of, okay, this is how we first got, not only sorcery being taught, because glintstone comes down for the first time, and blankets possibly all the land, but, you know, at the very least, certain parts, like the mountaintops and such, sort of convinces, sort of gets the idea that the stars are now responding and sort of bringing down their glintstone almost like a rainstorm. Okay, does that mean that actual water, rainwater was involved in there? Is that why this water has some connection to crystals then? Again, there's just so many questions that flood my mind with this, and I'm trying to make sense of the cosmological rules so that way we can more easily navigate some of these finer details that are in the vagueness of the lore. Let's see what's Bori got to say here. Those are crystallized Mikola plants, right? I think the Mikola plants are something different, Xavier, if I recall correctly, because those are like blood, or sacramental buds, right? I think those are different. I think the idea is that it's a strain of the same bud idea, of the basic bud plant, right? But it has some of Mikola's blood in it, and I guess it's spread from the Halig tree or something, and it's spread across the lands between kind of like, you know, Miranda's and, the other things, so that's my position there. Okay, so Bori's saying water, celestial dew, cold, glintstone, and ice as crystals, the upper frozen frigid void, the moon, seems to be a relation with the sky and residual life / consciousness as frozen willpower. Yes, so there's, again, this is much like in Dark Souls, there's this, and again, of course, Bloodborne, there's this idea of the cosmic realm, the sky is a ocean above our heads. It's associated with not just, of course, water, but also with things that we would classify under non-existence. So will, you know, things that aren't physically tangible, right? Like will, consciousness, things of that nature. And we also have this idea of course, in Elden Ring specific cosmology, we have the idea that this cosmos, this dark black night sky, this abyss, this primordial current from which the stars and their flow comes from, all of this is associated with stars as their own life, right? Star life, the amber of the stars, right? And this takes the form of glintstone. That rains down from the sky. So some of their life energy is essentially coming down or being sent down, right? Same thing when we see with like meteor strikes creating somber stone and all that stuff, right? Somber stone seems to basically just be kind of like lesser glintstone, right? It doesn't crystallize, but it has some of that power there that gets used. And obviously the most powerful type of smithing stone is, you know, like placky scales and all that, right? Because it's, you know, it's the power of rock mixed with the power of gold directly. Liurnia Lake and the huge crystal cluster near Noxtella and the the many crystallians. Seems like many things fall from the sky, from metallic ores to crystals. Yeah, there's this idea that meteors also come from the sky, and they're a type of rock as well, which is of course very interesting when you consider the idea that crystals, the crystallians were created on this Earth. It seems like they had a creator who carved them from glintstone and stuff, and that's kind of its own separate thing. But yeah, the idea is like, yeah, the crystals they're made of seem to all originate from the stars as well. Oh, by the way, the land octopuses near the Amber Starlight Shard drop sacramental buds, so it seems they were trying to reproduce from the Mikola blood on the plants surrounding the statue. That's actually really cool. Let's actually check that out right now. Yeah, we want to go here, right? Fascinating. So they drop sacramental buds. So yeah, not only does that strengthen the Mikola connection. Yeah, we go here. So again, Golden Roa, typical plant. Altus Bloom. And then you have these plants that are all gathering around, right? There's these golden flowers. Land octopus ovary. Give me a sacramental bud, piece of shit. Give me my sacramental bud. One of these days, I would like someone to go through the files, find every enemy's loot table, and kind of post them in relation to who that enemy is, where they are, and all that stuff. Like, put it on a map or something. I don't know. I would love something like that. I'd also love it if someone ever created an interactable map where you could, like, sort of map out where every individual plant or item or object or something is. So, like, someone be like, oh, there's sacramental buds here, 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 and it's like its own little marker, interactive, you know, like those map things you see where they do it with graces and stuff, and you can like remove them or add in like different, like, you know, factors of things you want to include, like the bridges or the caves or the churches, you know, that type of stuff. You can like appear or disappear them. I'd love if they could do that with like plants and flowers and stuff too. That would make things so much easier in terms of trying to figure out where, you know, getting a complete data set to work with, where it's like, okay, I know where all of these sacramental buds are used or drop or can be found, right? That I would love. There used to be sacramental buds all over, but you already harvested them. There is, I'm unsure how accurate it is, though. I'm gonna have to look into that even more than Xavier, and I'll try to verify it personally, but that makes sense. So they gather around here, oh, Xavier, you just explained it, right? Because where are the ovaries? Puffy, milky white ovary of a land octopus, material used for crafting items. Land octopuses eat humans in order to bear young, and theirs is the blood that runs through these ovaries. That explains it. Like you said. Okay. It finally all clicked to me. Okay, yeah, so they're after the blood from the sacramental buds, hence why they're gathering around here, and they're trying to eat the blood of Mikola, which is in these buds, and are, you know, proliferating there. That is super cool. Very, very good find. Crystal Amber and Glintstone are all petrified life force. As such, we have many glintstones made from blood, from tree sap, from water. But what is the purple of meteors? I assume the purple color, because we seem to see it strongly associated with gravity and stuff. I think the purple is probably representing of that pull/attraction power. Petrified life force. I don't know if I'd use the word petrified. Maybe... Well, petrified is more so becoming stone, right? So that could work. I would say mineralized or crystallized would be the best way to put it. see, like, for example, amber associated with, like, gemstones and things of that nature, so. Too bad Moog is hogging all the Mikola blood. Yeah, he's hogging all that Mikola blood, right? Like, he's face deep, like, he just buries his face in that Mikola blood, like, Mikola! I have never felt so alive! God, Moog, you're a weirdo. Man's like, I'm inside Mikola blood. Gosh. Like, the more I think it, I'm just not making any more, like, serious breakthroughs. Like, my thoughts are getting crystallized more, right? Like, as I've talked this out loud with you guys. I'm getting more of a sense of, okay, yeah, what we can say about America's origins. So yeah, I'm going to start formulating a formal theory around America originating from this city. I think that's the most likely scenario at this point. I have a bit more questions that I need to dig into, and I'm not getting, like, the huge breakthrough I was hoping for, but yeah, I'm definitely kind of seeing it. It's like, it's all starting to fall into place, right? We got this. We got the Morn Heroes graves here. Got the little Mikola shrine here. We got the cave there. And where the hell is the cave? Oh, here. I was about to be like, where is that? There it is, the Perfumer's Grotto. Okay. Alderwald Phantom Tree. Alright, so this is where America first starts investigating Order, and eventually that leads to Golden Order fundamentalism, as we see with the corpse here, with the Phantom Seal for them. Church has the Erdtree cross symbol. Good to know. So we know Radigan. So okay, well, let's go over this in order, right? Because we're done with America's you know, like, background stuff. I think I've taken it as far as I can right now with my, you know, tired brain. Because who needs sleep? So let's look at the post. Let's look into the Radigan era type deal. So, America kills Millennia, Glowmite Queen. Not Melania, Melina, Glowmite Queen. God, again, sorry, I'm so tired, chat. So many M names. So America kills Melina, becomes the Eternal Queen. As Eternal Queen, she rules over whatever's left of her era of prosperity. Omen incident happens. Crucible dies. She has to give up her Omen kids, to the sewers. Yeah, okay. So all of that is happening. Because the Crucible ends up dying or disappearing and becoming normal Erdtree, the Erdtree releases seeds in order as self-preservation. Those seeds start becoming Phantom Trees, which become the minor Erdtrees as they grow up. This is why we have the big trees, even though after the Shattering we see more seeds are released and create the Phantom Trees we loot today. However, not all of them are necessarily from the Shattering. As we can see, there are, besides there's that tree there, which has been controlled growth. It's clear, looking at it, that if this church wasn't in ruins now, that tree wouldn't be growing as tall and wild as it is at the moment. Probably be a little bit smaller and more, you know, more fit for the church. But we have the idea there's also the Phantom Trees, which have been incorporated here into the highway. So they almost like they've been planted there as part of a garden. So it's very obvious that, okay. Oh, wow. Oh, now you show up. I see how it is. Right, so you have these Phantom Trees, which obviously didn't appear with the Shattering. Oh, look, there happened to be a little garden space. I happened to land it. Like, obviously, no. So you obviously have this idea that, okay, when the Crucible's gone and these seeds are spreading, not all of them are allowed to be minor Erdtrees. Some of them are left to grow big, but not that big. So only the tree over here, which is in a remote part of the area. You know, this is the graveyard portion, right? There's the Morn Heroes graveyard. There's the Ariza graves. And then there's the side entrance here that no one goes to. Hence why it's just guarded with burial knights and stuff. Burial knights. The banished knights and stuff. Again, I'm so sorry, chat. I'm tired. I cannot speak. I'm even less intelligible than usual. Hey, Pastor, good to see you. A formal theory, a thesis, perhaps? Oh no, John, you're trying to push me. You might even be next. You're going to be telling me maybe something I can post to the website, huh? No, I won't. I'm not in yet. It's only 1 foot, Chad. I promise. I'm not obsessed with Elden Ring that I'm going to write on entire books. Actually, probably like 5 volumes worth of text analyzing Elden Ring. I'm not yet. I'm not in that deep. Me still coping. Weirdo is an understatement. I didn't realize your Healing Church thesis is already out. Yep, it's out, Pastor. So feel free to go read up on your brothers of the church. Yeah, still have the Erdtree cross symbol here. Because again, highway. Though sometimes it can get real faded, huh? Okay, so basically seeds go out. America sees these phantom seeds and is like, wow, I really don't know. My eternal crucible is dead. These seeds are being spread. I really don't know anything about my faith, do I? Okay, guys, we're gonna stop doing faith alone. It's time we actually get some intelligence in our build and actually study this shit and figure out exactly how this order crap works. Well, America starts her studies. We know this will end in Golden Order fundamentalism, but first she needs to get all that knowledge about the universe. So to help her with her research, well, where's she going to get knowledge on the larger cosmological world? Well, her options seem to be either the Nox, which again, they do have friendly relations there, but we know from the Nox that they don't do intelligence as much. Their main focus is arcane, right? Because again, they're Newman, so they have a spiritual connection to the cosmos, so they have a higher arcane sensitivity than most, so they don't have to focus on having a cerebral, rational comprehension of these concepts or things. They just, it's intuitive. It's, it's just, they're just, you just gotta meditate, bro. Just meditate. So they're not gonna be of as much help. Her main source is gonna be the sorcerers of Liurnia. Now, again, she can't go to these stargazers up here because she wiped them out. She already massacred them all. They're all dead. They're just buried here. There may be a few survivors who helped build these catacombs, but they're basically all dead. That's not going to help you. So you want to go to Ray Lucaria and Lucaria Manor, where obviously they have archives of libraries and libraries full of books on the study of the stars and the cosmos and all that stuff. So that's where she wants to go. Well, unfortunately, as we talked about earlier in the stream, there's these strained relations between Liurnia and the Erdtree capital, right? Because they're very much opposites. The sorcerers don't like faith people, but they don't like banished knights more, so they basically allow diplomacy to go through. And we know from Morgott and him having a Karya Knight sword that there seems to have been diplomatic missions from Karya with Glintstone Knights visiting the Erdtree capital as a delegation and, being ambassadors, stay there, blah, blah, right? And Morgott witnessed this before he got exiled underground, hence why, much like other stuff related to the Crucible era, he's able to create a spectral phantom weapon using his gold magic power. Okay, so all that is all settled, but Marika needs to get that knowledge, but she's not going to have easy access to it because, again, strained relations. So what's she going to do? She's going to start a war and take over the land. It's like, you know what? I've been putting it off for the longest time. We've basically just been having relations with these people because we want to have connections to our penal colony at Stormvale down here with our whole trade route thing. But you know what? It's about time I start incorporating this landmass into order. Again, recall at the time that the Banished Knights are getting, well, banished. Marika had just taken over all of this. Again, Volcano Manor seems to have been more of a sort of, they agreed to placate and vassalage, right? So they can kind of maintain some level of autonomy. But basically, she basically had Godfrey conquer this entire plateau. But Liurnia is twice that size, and the bigger concern was the giants. So basically, they're not going to try to, take over Liurnia directly. They're just going to build diplomacy. But now that the giants are dealt with, the plateau was secure. The giants were dealt with. They had their golden age to secure and build up their empire. There was this big scare with the Glomite Queen and the Godskin hunts, but those have been dealt with now. The Crucible's now been destroyed, and Marika's big thing is now researching the Order, but she's still got her big army here. So you know what? Let's take it and conquer. Now Godfrey doesn't take part in this war, probably because he's still depressed over the Omen kids. That's the best explanation I can think of. Godfrey makes a big deal about honor and warriors and fighting and, you know, being straightforward, right? So you have to imagine that him essentially, quote unquote, betraying his kids that he partially raised through at least up until like maybe like they're 6 or something, because they know how to talk, they know how to, you know, they're not like complete wild children, right? So they've been in royal family, god society, you know, Morgott knows how to use his, you know, gold powers and magic and all that. So they seem to have been part of that society for a little bit, and then like as toddlers, whatever, you know, young like 6-year-olds or whatever, they're tossed into the dungeons, right? So you have to imagine that for Godfrey, this probably hits him especially hard because he essentially betrayed his kids, you know, his own flesh and blood, and abandoned them for politics. Again, something which Godfrey is, you know, Godfrey's not a innately political figure. That's more America's thing. He's someone who is that way because America needs that type of person to be her lord more than just a fighter when it becomes him becoming king, right? So you can easily see him getting depressed, right? And what knocks him out of that depression, well, Grand Sax landing his fat ass on the capital city kind of makes you wake up and go, wait a second, I have people I should be fighting to protect. That's more important than me moping about my kids. Right, so at this time, though, this is not Ancient Dragon War era, this is before that, so America is basically like, okay, fine, if you're not going to do it, husband, I'll do it myself, or rather, I'll have my other self do it for me. And so Radagon is made who to lead the charge. Now, Radagon is ostensibly a member of the royal family. When Renala and Radagon get married, Muriel describes it as the union of 2 great houses, or as the Japanese puts it, the two royal families. So it seems to be that the public story is that Radagon is some relative of America, like a cousin or something. Like, oh, this is my 3rd cousin who you all never saw before, but don't worry, he's totally related to me, I promise. Yep, that's why, yeah, yep, sure, definitely. And basically, Radagon is made a general to lead the forces, because again, America is weak little lady who needs Godfrey to do all her fighting, but now she has Radagon, who was created seemingly after the Glowmite Queen incident by the Greater Will to spite America and make up for Malekith, right? So, again, America goes against the will of the Two Fingers in order to stop the Glowmite Queen and make herself into the Eternal Queen, who will rule forever and ever and ever evermore, though now her crucible will not. As a result of that, Malekith should have done what we see with the whole Blythe scenario of, oh, you go against the will of the Two Fingers, okay, the baleful shadows will come for you. Malekith seems to have resisted that and instead helped Marika go so far as even slay the Glowmite Queen with the power of the Rune of Death and all that, right? So, Greater Will basically witnesses that Malekith is fucking unreliable. So, what's a Greater Will gonna do? Seemingly create a second person in Marika who is loyal to the Golden Order. Radagon basically does whatever Marika says, so long as it's within, you know, so long as she is acting within the interests and obedience of the Golden Order. And, of course, when she betrays the Golden Order, he also betrays her, right? He stops doing what she wants. And she gets all pissy about it, because you're not a god, you dog. But, yeah, so Marika is basically stuck with the second person who doesn't really understand his own nature of existence, right? And neither does she, right? That's the whole point of researching the Order. All this strange, bizarre crap is happening, and she realizes that she really doesn't know what she's dealing with. She just kind of thought she could coast around with faith and become an all-powerful deity, right? Then she realized, oh, I'm not really in the driver's seat. There's this Greater Will, which is always manipulating me, and it can actually get in my way, such as, you know, making my kid try to kill me and take over my kingdom after massacring all of us, and then force me to have to kill the kid in order for me to maintain my own power. Well, this sucks. So then, with Radagon existing, and Radagon seems to be basically a carbon copy of Marika, seems to share her animosity for the Giants. We see this with the idea that Radagon hated the fact that he had hair that resembled the Giants. Again, this goes to the idea that Greater Will probably made Radagon the way he is because, you know, to spite Marika in many respects. It's like, okay, here's your new here's your new guard dog. Since, you know, the first one I sent didn't work. Then Radagon, from this point onward, basically seems to more or less just act as America's proxy. He seems to develop a personality with Renala. You know, he develops his own individuality now, because now he's making very distinct, important memories separate from America in his own environment. Like, you know, he's living his own life now, right? So it's kind of like the idea of, like, you know, the reincarnation, the second self, the robot, right? Like this machine that like sort of just follows like programming and like has a sort of set personality and doesn't have an individual, like, you know, it's one of a factory unit, like they're mass produced or whatever, so they don't have an individual personality, but then they have unique experiences separate from, like, say the other person, right? The other carbon copy, and that allows them to become their own individual person in truth, right? In actuality, right? Not just in you know, conceptually. And as a result of that, that's what we seem to see with the whole, you know, sending the Amber Egg to Renala, even though obviously that serves no purpose to America, or, you know, you could even argue maybe a slight loss to them if they're giving out their runes or whatever in eggs, in Amber Eggs, for those types of reasons. But again, it sort of seems to show that even though Radigan is hopelessly loyal to the Golden Order, and so when America beckons, he answers. He will still send this back to her as kind of like a small consolation prize for their relationship together, right? So to kind of show it wasn't all fake and lies. But speaking of fake and lies, the idea is that, okay, Radigan sends his soldiers down here, down the Bellum Highway. This Bellum Highway is where the first Liurnian War happens. Obviously, they get intersected by Rhea Lucaria, who are like, hello, you're bringing an army, we don't like this, stop. Oh, you won't stop? Okay, we fight. And then it leads to a draw, and the Golden Order fails to conquer, right? So straight up, the straightforward method of just attacking outright isn't working. So they go around the side. They build this village. They build the watchtower to cover their flank. They have this tower with the village with the walls and all that, and they try to instead assault through the eastern tableland and go around this way. Now again, it seems that the Rhea Lucarians discovered this in advance. They caught word of this, and then they end up intercepting. Again, they take the path up, and they battle on the eastern tableland here, right? So this is where the other monument is. This is where we get the Church of... this is where Renala and Radigan finally meet. So Radigan distinguishes himself as a hero of the battlefield during the First Liurnian War. Then during the Second Liurnian War, it seems this is when Renala takes the field. And... probably because, again, they had more... Again, this one, you can imagine the mobilization was kind of quick. Like, it's like, oh god, we kind of have to get our people, so maybe Renala wasn't actually fighting in this war. But this one, they had a lot more time, where obviously there's a lot more planning that goes into trying to make this little kind of side ambush assault. And once you kind of know that assault's coming, you have a lot more time to kind of, okay, we got to move up and intercept and all that, right? And so as a result, Renala's taking the field. She's going to make sure that the Liurnian Wars end for good, but she meets Radigan, she falls in love, and as a result, when they hit the draw, Marika realizes this, like, okay, I'll marry my cousin, quote-unquote, to you, Queenie, and then our royal families will be together. We'll get the Nox involved, because, you know, I know Newman, you know Newman, we can all work together in order to have them be our mediators to kind of resolve this issue as if this war never happened. And then, as a result of my family being married to yours, you can now, say, open up your gates to allow, say, nobles of the golden lineage to come study here, or, say, have your husband study all the books in your personal private library, and, you know, start setting up sorcery so he can use that and apply it to the study of his research of the Golden Order, which Marika will be doing independently. Again, we see with this church and stuff here. So all that's happening. By the way, I can post an image that compares Gideon's and the Nox's eyes in the Elden Ring chat. Oh, that's cool. If you could, Xavier, though, do it in the Discord. I assume you're talking about the Discord chat, but just in case you were talking about YouTube, I don't know what YouTube chat thing does with pictures, by the way, so, again, call me ignorant. But post whatever you can in the Discord. I'm more than happy to have that. Nice pictures, by the way. Thank you. I'm very glad you like the stuff for the Healing Church. I worked really hard. I'm sure you saw those episodes. And the other foot is in a gold-plated bear trap. Oh. Elden Ring Issel Archive hardcover is going to be like $1,000 when it comes out. Oh my goodness. 5 volumes, $1,000. Honestly, knowing how inflation's going to go, I think Abyssal Archive is going to be $1,000. It'll be like, well, that's how much American money is worth nowadays. Oh god. Anyway, yeah. Uh, an Elden Ring book would be like 5 volumes, and it would be so ridiculously expensive. Like, gosh, I can't even begin to fathom. Like, maybe I'm over-exaggerating. Maybe, for all... Because I've talked about before how vacuous Elden Ring can be with all the, like, the generic items and spare stuff. So maybe I could, like, simplify stuff down for, like, maybe, like, the unessential stuff for lore or whatever. But, like, even then, I still think it's going to be real big. Like, I don't know what an Abyssal Archive 2 would be like. Like, is it going to be 2 volumes, or is it going to be 3 for Dark Souls 2? What about Dark Souls 3? Dark Souls 3 is definitely bigger than both of those games. Will I be able to keep that to 2 volumes? Like, gosh, chat, it's... Well, let's just know that Loki's thought about sequels, and oh boy, he's not ready. Poor banished knights keep getting bullied. Bark, 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 Malekith. Yeah, exactly. This is the problem with being a banished knight. You just... No one likes you. No one likes you. Sometimes for justified reasons. Anyway, so, yeah, so Liurnian Wars happen. All of this becomes under part of the Golden Order as a result. So all of it gets incorporated. All of them now have to practice Erdtree, burial, and all that crap, right? Again, royal family graveyard built back here as a result. So all that's going on. Radigan has some kids. We know that Ronnie is selected while she's still young, because she grows up with Blythe as her, like, step-bro. Her half-bro or whatever, right? So there's this idea that, Blythe, is chosen as her shadow beast, while she has, she's an Empyrean selected by the Fingers at a young age. So probably before Godfrey even gets, exiled, Marika already knows that the Greater Will is trying to find another replacement for her. Now, as we know, Marika seems to put it off until after Millennia and Mikkel are born, and then they too are also selected as Empyreans, and then Marika seems to try to play it diplomatically so she doesn't have to kill her kids again, and then one of her kids ends up dead anyway. Thanks, Ronnie. And Marika goes crazy and breaks the Elden Ring, right? But anyway, focusing on the Radigan era. So, Radigan now lives here. We know that he takes the sorcery professors at the Caria Manor, and he makes them all wear masks with, like, his rune symbol on them, right? The little scratch mark, like their mouths are sewn shut, right? And the idea seems to be because they have to conceal they are to keep their private affairs, well, private, they're to be kept secret. Now, of course, this is funny because it boosts arcane, and arcane means the secrets of God, right? So knowledge God only knows. So there's the idea of, aha, Radigan is secretly Marika, who is God, and therefore the idea is like, okay, Radigan's trying to keep God's secrets from the professors, which tells us that it's quite possible that Radigan may have let Renala know about his true nature as Marika, and there may have been, like, secret behind the scenes, closed door stuff happening. It's an interesting thought to consider. Okay, so then, what happens after that? So Radigan basically just stays behind, has a bunch of kids, and is studying sorcery. Now we know when Marika applies a source seal to the hero Zamor, who gets locked up here because he refuses to go leave, and that's the rusted anchor and all that, right? Like, all these tarnished are trying to leave, but this one hero of Zamor is like, no! When I left my homeland to join Godfrey's army out of gratitude for the war, I did not expect that I would be leaving the land. I'd be permanently leaving the land like this, right? Like, this is not what I signed up for, right? Like, it's like, okay, I'm going to be with Godfrey's army for a while, help with his campaigns and all that, but eventually I'll go back home. And now you're telling me I have to leave permanently? No, I refuse. I'm not going to go along with this any further. I'm going to go home. How dare you, Marika? And then, you know, curses him with the Scar Seal and locks him in an ever jail as punishment for defying her will, right? But specifically, it's a Radigan seal, which tells us, oh, did Radigan already leave Renala at this point and come all the way over here? Or maybe Marika transformed into Radigan, because again, she ain't protecting herself from a hero of Zamord. Did she unleash her Radigan transformation and have him deal with the hero and then lock him in the over jail? Who knows? Interesting thing to consider. But either way, it seems to be that he shows up in some fashion here to handle all this, and then Marika and who knows, maybe the idea of Radigan saving Marika, quote unquote, was her justification for getting married. It's like, oh my god, I fell in love with my cousin after after he saved me. Like, I just swooned and immediately decided I wanted to marry him. Everyone's like, you know, that's kind of weird. It's like, shut up, I'm queen. I do what I want. Anyway, who knows if that was specifically her aim or goal with that entire stunt. But in the end, it seems to be that her and Ratigan are reunited. They go back to the capital. They get married. Again, we talked about the whole statue thing, building, and this is because now Ratigan is now going to master understanding incantations back at the capital, now that he's mastered sorcery. Again, the localization uses the term study, but this doesn't mean study in like, oh, I casually learned something. It means studied like, you know, you're an active agent pursuing something to completion, right? So again, and this is the point of it making the idea in Ratigan's icon of Ratigan is, I'm missing this. Why am I missing increase but maximum HP is reduced? Where's my stuff? Where is it? What increases my power? I guess increases less FP might be better. Yeah, we'll do for that for now. Anyway. What was I on? Do we have it here? We don't have Ratigan's icon here anymore, do we? Well, you know what that means, chat. Gotta go get out of storage. Anyway, so Ratigan's icon talks about how Ratigan, he does all this studying and mastering of incantations and sorcery because he himself wants to be complete. And that's, again, the idea is that to study in this case means to study to completion, right? To completely master a subject, to have a holistic understanding of it, right? So there's a difference between you learning mathematics in, like, say, primary school versus, say, studying mathematics in college, right? One implies, okay, you maybe learn some things about mathematics. When you study it in college, there's the idea that you're trying to understand the subject as a whole to a certain proficiency. All right, we go this way. There we go. Where's that icon? No, it's up here. There we are. Yeah, so thus did the hero aspire to be complete, right? So he wanted to be complete. And this seems to tell us, again, this idea that Ratigan is developing his own personality and individuality, because it's like he's just a carbon copy of America, but he does understand his nature. He has this inborn loyalty to the Golden Order and all that. So in order to help separate himself more as a person, he's going along with this, not just because America wants to, but because he also wants to personally understand his own nature and thus find a way that he could be his complete own person. Melania marched her troops towards the bridge to Stormvale from Liurnia. I remember that. Yeah, so the idea is that... Again, I talked about this in an earlier stream because I wasn't sure about Melania's thing, but... So Melania, for some reason, starts her march, but we don't know how that march proceeded up until here. This is where we know she has conflict, right? So around, like, here-ish, we know that there was a conflict here. Which makes me wonder, did she literally go this entire way without any conflict with the sorcerers? Like, nani? Or is this monument just kind of telling you how, oh, she actually fought her way through, like, all of this? And this monument just marks, like, the ending point when, like, the fighting stopped. It's like, okay, now she can move on without having to fight people anymore, right? Like, it's kind of like, hey, beyond this point is all the places Melania fought. Maybe that's the idea. Either way, I find it a little odd what her travel path was supposed to be, especially from, like, the Halig Tree, which is like, how do you get out of the Halig Tree without a grace point, right? Anyway, yeah. But the focus here is on Ratigan's era. We're trying to understand. If Marika had a hammer, was she a smith while Ratigan was a seamster? Ooh, that's an interesting thing to think about, huh, Xavier? I don't know if she was a smith, per se. Maybe, because she also has that connection to Hugh, right? And Hugh is like a big smith stuff, so maybe that was her expertise as a Newman in Newman society. She came from like a smithing family, maybe. That's an interesting idea to think about. That could explain why she has some familiarity with combat and war and stuff, while not being a fighter herself. Right, like she's used to her and her family or her background coming from a background of making weapons, interacting with soldiers and warriors and things of that nature. Yeah, I could see it. That's definitely something worth looking into. I don't know if Ratigan was a formal seamster, though. Because the idea of them sewing their mouths shut is the masks, right? So it's not like he's sewing people's mouths. It's that the masks have his symbol, and it has this, you know, kind of sewn-up look to it, right? His little rune that has, like, the crisscross lines. The little net pattern. So let's see. Anything else we can tie to Ratigan? This seems to be from the the southern campaigns that Godfrey goes on after the Stormvale Rebellion. Fort Belfry is... I'm trying to think of other stuff I associate with Radigan. Probably not, right? So he studies sorcery, then he returns to America, studies incantations. Oh, right, the Karian Study Hall. That's what I forgot. You get the Cerulean Seed Talisman, which is like, okay, so just like how America's studying the seeds and the phantom trees up here, Radigan, as America's king, as Renala's king, as her consort, he's using the Karian Study Hall in order to research into, like, the seeds and the talismans and all that stuff, right? So, like, okay, that all makes sense, right? So again, all connecting America and Radigan's independent research orders that they then combine together. So Radigan starts trying to study incantations. I think that's why we have a Church of Radigan here, right? So let's... This is a Church of Radigan, if I recall correctly. And as a Church of Radigan, that tells me that Radigan's presence was probably here at some point, right? Because it seems to be the idea with the churches that if there's a church built there, it was probably a location that the god was at one point. So, like, First Church of America. Well, this is where America had her big speech with the army before they made their way up and built the Guardians Garrison and assaulted the Giants, right? So, all of that. So they're controlling, they settle here on this lake or whatever, and then America has her big speech, right? Then later, America's involved in she's involved along with Arganthi or whatever the name is. I forget whoever that lord moving up there is, but these two women are working together in order to execute all these giants. So America has another church here, the Church of Repose, right? Because it's all about giving them eternal rest in the most painful way possible. Right, so the same thing with Radigan, right? And of course, I talked about how the Second Church of America, I believe, was established as part of America distributing the sap of the Crucible to all the nearby settlements, right? Like, you build a castle, it's no longer like this big thing in the capital. It's, okay, we're trying to give this to the people. So we go out closer to the middle of where all the people are, and we start, handing it out to all various people on the plateau, right? So America, and also hence why the giant independent graveyard here, so a lot of people are bringing their sick and their elderly or whatever, right? And those that can't get cured or aren't cured in time or whatever get the special little earth tree burial outside of the church, right? So the same thing with Radigan. We see places like, say, the Bellum Highway, which again, as you may recall, that was a major site of where Radigan was, right? Now, they don't have a Church of Radigan here, but you have the Church of Vows instead, because it's supposed to be the idea of uniting the two houses, so obviously having a giant Church of Radigan here by its lonesome without a Renala statue would kind of be uncouth, politically speaking. So Bellum Church gets built because this is where Radigan first distinguished himself as a hero. Another Radigan church here at the Church of Pilgrimage, right? So America's church, obviously, because she's here during the whole exiling people. We have Melena's words, which are curiously spoken around this church rather than that church. I wonder if that was a gameplay consideration or something else. Anyway, but basically, Radigan is implied to be here by the hero of Zamor, and we have a Radigan church here. So again, it goes to this idea that these churches aren't just built randomly, they are churches that are being built with the intention of representing the presence of that depicted figure that's enshrined there, right? So America probably went to the church, was at the Church of at the battle that took over Stormvale at one point. So the Church of Irith is built here. So something to keep in mind. I guess Godwin was left in charge while the royal couple left. He's like, hey, King and Queen are leaving. Crown Prince, you're in charge. Underground roadside, red chamber, 4-second dibs. Yeah. So you have the Stormcaller Church here, which may just be named because the idea of obviously all these plants are calling the storm of the lightning that rains down here. But it makes you wonder, why was Radigan here? Now, there's two options. Either A, the Lyrian Wars occur actually after the Ancient Dragon War. That would be the one explanation. And Radigan took part in the Ancient Dragon War, but he never distinguished himself. Rather, it was Godwin who distinguished himself in that war as the hero, right? Which, again, totally viable. I think there's enough flexibility in the timeline of like the hard evidence we have that I think someone can make a case. As I've said before, I believe the Ancient Dragon War occurs afterwards, though. So why would Ratigan come here if the Ancient Dragon War wasn't the reason for his presence here at one point? Well, my thought is that Ratigan came here because this area, for one reason or another, obviously because dragons fought here with the people, but the idea is that whatever the reason for why the dragons being present here and fighting here caused there to be more lightning here than usual. Chat, where are all the lightning areas supposed to be? I wonder if all the Fulgur blooms are in locations where lightning was used heavily. Okay, that's a side topic that I don't want to get into right now. But currently we have, okay, big man with his red hair and his golden crown. Yep. Get out of my way, horse. So you have Ratigan with his red hair and his golden crown and all that stuff. He was present here at some point. Maybe he was here to examine the lightning as part of his mastery of incantations, because as we know, some of the first incantations were by the Beast Cult and the Beast Priest and all that. So he's not interested in the Ancient Dragon Cult, right? He's not interested in the one that Lingdell established. He's interested in like some of the originals from Far Azula. Well, Far Azula is now, well, you know. So rather than trying to go all the way over there and trying to comb a ruin that's over there high in the sky, he's going to go to this old battlefield and maybe examine the lightning directly, separately from that cult, and try to understand things in relation to purely the Golden Order and all that. And that may be the idea there. I had to link the tweet because Discord reduces the quality of the image. Oh, that sucks, Xavier. But again, not what you're doing, just the fact that it does that for you. I wish it didn't do that. I would like it for you to just be able to post whatever you like without reducing quality, but that's cool. I'll check out the tweet then. What would America wear as winter clothes? That's a good idea. That's a good question, Pastor. I would love to see fan art of what America would wear for the winter. The wintry ice storms. That's how Mikola got his affinity for needles from Ratigan. Actually, that's true. If I recall correctly, going with that, if we want to go with that seamster idea, isn't there are needles here? There's sewing needles here. Yeah, okay, Xavier mentions this in an earlier comment. One of the tools brought by Ratigan when he entered into marriage with Renala, Queen of the Full Moon, and joined the Karian line. Ooh, okay, I forgot about the needles. Okay, Xavier, you might have a, yeah, that might be a, oh god, yeah, I have to send that to Smotown. I completely forgot about that. That wasn't in, you know what, it's not on Vati's board, I don't think, so I didn't even consider. Or if it is, it completely slipped my mind to grab it when I was going through all the Ratigan items to help with Smotown's bit. Oh well. I missed something! Okay, so, think it over. Ratigan comes here, tries to study incantations, all that, right? So he studies the lightning there as part of his incantation research. Then, him and Marika together, between all the research they've both done, they come up with what we call the Principia, or whatever, right? The book, basically the prayer book for Golden Order fundamentalism, right? They define it, right? Now we know Golden Order fundamentalism evolves over time. Oh, what item is in this chest? That could be useful. I'm gonna have to remember that. Oh. Yes, we get it. We want to defend this area. Fine. Gravelstone. There we go. There we go. Tools brought with the red-haired Ratigan when he married into the Karian line. With these, even demigod attire can be altered at a site of grace. Here is the gold tailoring tools. Yeah, okay, that's a lot. That's a lot of stuff that associates Ratigan with sewing. You know what? Actually, now that I think about it, that makes a lot of sense, because the term for repairing, of him, like, repairing the Elden Ring, uses the same term that is associated with, like, mending, you know, like the mending runes and all that. And, you know, mending having this idea of, you know, sewing, mending a cloth or a clothing or something like that. Oh, wow. Oh, wow, there might be a larger thematic connection there. Oh, that's interesting. So this idea that Radigan and Marika being Radigan being a carbon copy of Marika can wield a hammer well. Plus he has added physical strength and all that as you know, like a masculine guard dog, which is supposed to keep Marika in check. So naturally he's going to be given lots of power. So he's supposed to be like this great warrior naturally, right? But he can use a hammer instead of for smashing or forging or anything like that. He takes that to the level of like a seamster and starts doing it in more refined things. Interesting, very interesting. Yeah, I'm really getting the sense of, okay, so like Radigan, so like even before he meets Renala, there seems to be at least some sense that Radigan may be trying to, again, because this goes to this idea of he has that inborn, from the start, he has this natural loyalty to the Golden Order, like this sort of innate nature in that respect, disposition, I should say, plus this consumed by this obsession of why am I the way I am, why am I this incomplete being, like who am I, what am I, right, this existential crisis he has, and that could be manifest in him adopting self. Okay. That's really cool. Yeah, that's really neat. Yeah, that's a lot of characterization there, actually. So it's like, okay, I learn all this forging things from Marika, but I try to be more refined into the cloth and mending. Ooh, oh man, that's some good stuff. Again, chat, like you guys in Discord, you guys in my community, YouTube, all Twitter, everything. Like, I get so much from you guys. You guys teach me so much with your commentary and your feedback on as I ramble and rant. All right, so as we develop these ideas further, what do we get? Okay, so Radigan comes back, he studies incantations from here with lightning, he creates Golden Order fundamentalism. This is where likely we see the idea of rooting out corruption full, so because we know when Radigan becomes Elden Lord, right? The idea of the arenas die out, right? So like Radigan, Marika, they're not interested in, you know, this was a Godfrey thing, and Godfrey's gone, now the only one left is Marika and, you know, the other Marika, Radigan. So no longer are we going to do this whole arena, which is funny because this means that probably the Caelid arena didn't see too much use before it got closed down. Like, it's like Godfrey's like conquering all the lands here. Like he conquers this northern part. He builds an arena because why not? And he starts trying to conquer all his way down here to get to Celia and Ganton, Redmane and all that stuff. And then like, as soon as he's done there, he has to go on the Long March, and then Marika and Radigan get married. It's like, okay, we're closing this down. Poor Caelid Coliseum didn't really get to show itself off that much, I guess. Anyway. So the Colosseums get closed down, and now that fundamentalism is established, and there's this idea of regression and causality, this idea of trying to converge and bring yourself into, like, this orderly form. Okay, we can't have these wild Crucible-era things. Like, obviously, the Crucible Knights get mostly shunned. We only see 2 Celeria Knights guarding the churches. So you have the church here. You have the cathedral here, right? And that's it. Come back here. Is it just a gameplay thing, or is it implying he's sewn some of his children's clothing? It's quite possible it is implying that he did sew his children's own clothing. It's hard to say because it's a needle that can be used to even do that, but it doesn't necessarily mean it was done to do that, if that makes sense, right? Like, it's one of those things where, okay, it can even be capable to summon demigod's clothing. I don't know why demigod's clothing requires a special needle for it, but apparently it does. Yeah, I keep on trying to do this because I'm like, I really want a horse here. I hate this run, but whatever. Sewing was traditionally a male-dominated profession, while tailoring was traditionally female-dominated. Maybe they flipped it with Marika and Radigan because of the gender thing. Yeah, it's possible that Miyazaki would do that, right? Because Miyazaki does it with the whole demigod stepchildren, right? The term used for demigod, for, like, you know, Marika's demigod stepchildren is Gaiseki, which, again, it's the same term used to describe, say, Seath in his marriage to Guinevere and stuff, right? It's a term that usually refers to the idea you're a relative of the king, the male king, or the emperor. via a woman of the family. So like his mother, his consort, his queen or consort, his daughter, except his princess, right? So like stuff like that. But in Elden Ring, Miyazaki just blatantly gender flips it, right? He just is like, oh no, it's Marika is the queen and Radigan is the king consort. So it's Marika's how should I put it? Radon, Rykard, and Ronnie are Marika's demigod maternal relatives, or consort kin, as the traditional localization goes. I translate it as outside relative, more literally to the Japanese kanji, which, oh boy, I dodged a bullet, because I did not see that gender flipping coming, but man, that worked out in my favor now. Because it's not an inherently gendered term, but, you know, historically and traditionally, that's how it works out. But Miyazaki just says, well, I'm just gonna flip it. Very funny how that worked. Anyway, but yeah, that could be that was the thematic idea. Okay, we'll make Marika associated with smithing and forging, and then Radigan would be more associated with the finer, detailed, you know, dainty things of life. That's an interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna have to note all this down to forward to Smotown. Again, I keep telling Smotown how like a lot of this stuff, most of the stuff I send him is of course my content, but like every now and then I gotta be like, you know what, my chat pointed out something that I think is worth handing over to you. Like, here's some good shit you guys come up with. So you have this church here, which has a Celeria Knight, and again you can tell it's a church because, well, one, there's this big fancy courtyard with, again, these statues of the Crucible era Erd Tree type of deal, right? So again, whenever you see these statues, it's usually trying to give a special significance to these areas, right? So it's like, hey, you have this nice little courtyard or whatever. Hey, here's a reminder. Golden lineage supports your Erd Tree you love so much. Ha ha ha. Propaganda. And then as soon as you enter the church, you look to the left and, oh, look at that. Wild Erd Tree. So again, you get this Crucible era. Okay, so during the Crucible era, this type of church is built, and this is the church for the upper quarter folk, right? So you have this grand cathedral up here. They call it a sanctuary. And then you have this church here. So you have church, big church, cathedral. Because, you know, that's where the king and queen are, and that's where the main clergy are operating, right? So, like, this is the HQ for the religion. And this is, like, the local parish for the assimilated folk. And then there's a separate church here for the Nox folk, right? So this is the lower quarter, right? So this is the Nox quarter of the city, and this Nox quarter have their own little Erd Tree church because they're assimilated. One of the cool things about this church is when you follow the shortcuts and stuff up. So you have this church here, you have this little Erd Tree in the back here, so it's like, oh yes, let us give worship to the Erd Tree. Give praise to the Erd Tree! Ah, praise to the Erd Tree! Ah, give praise! Right. Again, statues. You got this this criminal here that the Celeria Knight is standing over, right? So it's like, I offer up to you the Erd Tree, this defier of the order, right? But then you find this side route, which will let you go this way. Oh. We find the lift, special little lift. So you have this big worship area in this quote-unquote church. More like a temple, honestly, with the way it's designed, right? That big rotunda, open worship area, nothing like an altar and pews like we see in the lower church in the Nox Quarter, right? So you go through the side route, and it's like, oh, this side route's a little unconventional, right? Has this chamber here, but mostly used for storage and stuff. And the reason why this is important is because it leads to here, which then makes you go left, and again you see the tree sentinel statues. See again these statues of big bold man picking the flower. I call him the flower picker in the Reign of Godfrey Doc. The reason why this is important is because we see all these statues here, so you can clearly see the amount of pomp that's been given to this walkway. The idea is you go through the church, you go through the side areas, but the church leads you through this side entrance all the way up to this area, which is another church. Well, that's weird. Now we know there's the finger calling, whatever it's called, that thing that we use for like PvP stuff, so I don't care about it. But you find this altar with a body laid on it, which is like, oh, this is almost like they're preparing the body, like they're preparing to consecrate or bless the body. Think the Firekeeper on the altar in the Undead Parish Church, right? You obviously see all the Erdtree banners again. So you have this kind of chapel area, and what do you know? Another side entrance to the left. So we take this one, and again, this is through the ramparts. So you see a bunch of rampart storage stuff. There's banished knight equipment back here. So you have the spears and stuff, but those could be generic in this context. But this, the shields down here, and the armor back here, this ain't. So again, this goes back to my point of the assimilated banished knights with like their gilded armor. They have a direct connection to the ramparts here, so you give the idea of, oh, okay, they're the ones that are expected to be the first line. They're expected to put themselves as the first line of defense, right? Like, they're going to put their lives on the line before everybody else to protect the city, right? Because they aren't the natives, right? They were previous resistors, right? So there's always this slight discrimination present in Erdtree culture, right? There's Godfrey's tribe, the Ariza, and then there's those who assimilated afterwards, and they're not going to have the same special privileges. Can't say I blame Radigan. Renala is a girl that poops. America is a woman that shits. What an interesting way to put it. Finger remedies, I think? Yeah, remedies. There we go. Thank you, Xavier. So again, we take the lift down here after the church. And what do it take you? Out here. This might, by the way, this may be the last remnant of the Sun Capital. Or it could be a remnant of the ancient civilization that preceded the Sun Capital and the Banished, the Banished Knight colonies and all that. That I'm still trying to work out. It has the same dark color that's associated with, and obviously you have the Blackstone golems here as well, right? Those guys. So there's the idea of, oh, ancient civilization stuff, right? So it may have a connection to the ancient civilization stuff we see here and with all the golems up here. And obviously the golems have also been repurposed by the Erdtree Kingdom here, right at the entrance to the grand lifts. But basically, you take the path all the way out here, and what do you know? There's the Ariza graves, right? So you get the idea of, okay, the church, those in the upper quarter, the Arizans, right? They're the ones who'd be living up here. They die, they're taken to the church takes them to a side entrance, which takes you to a separate church, which is just for consecrating the burial of the dead, and the dead are shipped out here and buried in their appropriate graveyards. So you have the hero's grave here, and the Ariza side tomb here. Now, again, there's also the Langdale catacombs down in the under the sewers, right? But these catacombs seem to be the generic catacombs for the city, right? The Ariza hero's grave goes for those who fought and are to be honored for their battle against the Sun Capital and the fortified manor, which led to tanking these lands in the first place, right? Obviously, the Plateau Unification Wars in general. So these are the ones who are considered heroes of this era, and they get respectful burial. That's why we find Ordovis and people acting as gravekeepers there, because they associate themselves with this era. And then you have these side tombs. Now, the side tombs are a bit weird, because they also have gargoyles which use both lightning and magic, which is a bit weird, like the magic, throwing pots and stuff, which is like, huh. I originally thought that this was for the non-heroes who fought in the Unification Wars, but now I'm skeptical if it may have been like something that was built or designed or renovated over time as America got the sorcery involved, and then later, of course, the ancient dragon cult gets involved, and like this Ariza side tombs get built up. There's also the question of why there's so many. It's all imps and pot people. Why are they all being made into pots? Questions. So Radigan starts pushing out corruption. This is probably where perfumers come, because perfuming obviously is you experimenting with plants to try to get to understand how their different effects and how they interact with each other, right? So that sounds very much academic and scholarly, like what we see with fundamentalism. So probably the clerics, the priests, and we obviously know that priests back in America's day look different from how they look in modern day, right? Because we see from the statues at the Dectus areas that the uniform is a bit different. They have the apron at the front, right? But the apron doesn't even have the same design on the details that the perfumers have. So it's very clearly all different. Also, these guys are peaceful until you attack them. That's funny. Wasn't expecting that. right? So you got these guys. These priesty boys. Unless I'm wrong, I'm actually thinking, what if these are sorcerers instead? And this is a warning about, hey, you're going to the land of sorcerers now, be careful. That would explain the staffs up here, huh? They have these kind of half crescent shape. I wonder. Let's compare this to the rolled Grand Lift. Ooh, I may have found something. I may have found a detail I missed last time I was going through here. That's cool. Okay, so let's see. Let's take a screenshot here. They do have plant life here, like the America stuff, though. So they don't have the aprons, at least the same that I recall. All right, let's go up here. Also, when I was mentioning the relic sword looking similar to the Inner Order gesture, the finger slaying blade is in the same pose, only when you hold the medallion. What do you mean when you hold the medallion, Xavier? As in... Yeah, here we go, see? These guys, though, these guys have the aprons. So these guys are definitely Erdtree clergy. Yeah, the other people may be representing sorcerers. Ah, you know what? I think we've seen that headgear somewhere before. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chad. Isn't it the same headgear we see on the hourglass thing? In the Rhea Lucaria altar and the Carian Study Hall altar? Let's confirm. So again, we have the priests. Again, notice how there's when you enter the plateau, there's always the Erdtree Sentinel statues warning you of like, hey, behave, you're coming into our territory. If you do anything to our Erdtree or our kingdom, we Sentinels will kill you, right? Like, there's the very obvious propaganda there. Let's go to the Carian Study Hall real quick. Fascinating. They aren't hostile. Oh, only when you hold the medallion, they aren't hostile. Gotcha, gotcha. I thought you were talking about the statues. I was like, wait, what? Like, yes, I understand the statues move when they're medallion. I don't know what that has to do with anything. Oh no, chat. Oh no, the game crashed again. I'm tired. I should be asleep. But, like, I'm on a roll right now. And I love you guys too much to want to, like, just kind of close down. Just because this game crashes on me again. So yeah, let's keep on looking. Who needs sleep, chat? Sleep is for the weak. Lore is forever, chat. Come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on. Also, Smotown responded to me. I was just checking my DMs. Smotown, let's just say that I'm extremely excited for Smotown's choir video. And Smotown seems to be too. I know a lot of you were saying how you were excited to see what Smotown's going to come up with. I can promise you. Smotown did his thing. He read my stuff, and now he's having new inspiration and stuff. Like, I'm really looking forward to seeing what the final product. Because even if it's like nothing new for me, like obviously I've done all my analyses on the choir and the background and stuff. Just seeing how Smotown's gonna put it together, how he's gonna handle it and explain it, I think that's just gonna be cool. Now where are we going? Carian Study Hall. I'll just say this: I have never had regardless of whether I agree or disagree with them on any given issue of Souls lore, I have not met a single content creator in Souls so far that I didn't like on a personal level. All of them just seem to be very swell people. Like, I know I hate on Tarnished Archaeologists and stuff, but it's not personal. It's just like I know like frequent people on my Elden Ring stream is like, I always feel like I'm always being harsh on Tarnished Archaeologist, but it really isn't personal. I'm sure he's a swell guy. I've never seen given any reason to believe otherwise. Same with, like, any other person I criticize. Like, obviously, I've even criticized Smotown, I've criticized Vati, blah, 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 right? Like, I'm a very much equal opportunist, but again, all the ones I've personally interacted with, I haven't interacted with Tarnished Archaeologist or Last Protagonist or any of those types of content creators. I haven't interacted with them yet, but I'm sure they're swell people, and the ones that I've met so far would tell me that, yeah, probably the people in the Souls community are all pretty nice, awesome people. Really cool guys you want to know. Meet. Okay, there we go. Yep, you know what? Chat, that's right. So those statues up there, those are statues of sorcerers. I recognize that little pattern on the line there, see? That kind of looks like, isn't that Renala's outfit? Like, doesn't Renala wear something just like that? And the hats are similar, too. I don't know if there's... Yeah, you know what? I think it is just a miniature version of those statues up there, because I recognize that little neck triangle thing at the top of the cloak. By the way, what symbology was on the tip of their staves to contrast the sorcerers? It seemed to just be a tree staff, if I recall correctly. So they were holding a bowl, which obviously was represent like a bowl of fire in one arm, and then the tree staff in the other. Let's go back. But okay, yeah. I was about to be like, oh my god, is it gonna crash again? Yeah, see, it looks like branches. So the idea is like, okay, tree in one hand, fire in the other. The idea that they have this duality to them, right? So the fire monks, they are loyal to the tree order, but they also are juggling the power of fire that they are fascinated by. That's a very good symbolism there. And again, we know that the fire monks have a deep connection to Erdtree religion, because this giant hero's grave has 2 fingers banners. Obviously, we see how they're gravekeepers here. There's a library over in that corner room I didn't explore, right? Shadow people. Ah, there it is. Banner. So you see the 2 finger symbol on these banners here. Obviously, 2 fingers, little codex thing, and the little forked tip to this banner kind of emphasize that point. So again, these are 2 fingers. 2 fingers, religion-related graveyard. So America seems to have worked with what's his face, the star. So those stargazers which weren't massacred and ended up getting buried back here. Those who probably did the burial, probably were helping with building this catacomb with America. So there's the section where it's like, okay, this obviously like sorcerer involved, and there's this other section where it's like, oh, it's got the same America prank vibe as the catacombs back at Langdell. So it's like, okay, America's being her prankster again. That makes sense. And then the hero's grave was focused on was handled by the priests, right? So it's a lot more conventional, all things considered. It doesn't have that America playfulness to it. And obviously the fire monks who these priests turned into, these warrior monks, these soldier monks, they're studying here, right? So we have this corpse here who seems to have looked into the old books, and he found the original incantation that was used during the Giant War, which is where the roots of the fire monk religion come from. Okay. Yeah, I did not include that in my Godfrey doc. I have to now update that Godfrey doc with that knowledge. Because I thought these were priests, and I could have swore I saw them with the apron here, but clearly I just wasn't looking well enough properly. These are clearly sorcerers. And they're holding staffs. And that was the thing that was confusing me. I was like, why do they have this staff with like this weird like little like half bowl thing? Now it makes sense. It's like, oh, they're sorcerers, so that's the moon, a crescent moon. Yeah, okay. So, Radigan is pushing out corruption like the Omen. Obviously, Omen are already being, like, enslaved. If the Omen weren't already, they're definitely being enslaved now, right? So there's the idea of getting rid of the Omen, but we don't know if I don't know if we know when the enslavement began, so if the enslavement didn't already happen during Godfrey's era, it definitely is happening now, right? Obviously, we know that Trisha and Rollo and others uh, try to cure or treat the corruption by either violently exterminating it or trying to peacefully cure it through perfuming. Either way, there's this idea of perfuming as an academic profession, so similar to how, again, Marika and Radigan are trying to understand the Golden Order, which again is synonymous with the Erdtree, which is synonymous with the Elden Ring. We have the perfumers on a lesser scale trying to understand lesser plants and how they work together, right? So Radigan, Marika trying to understand Erdtree, perfumers also trying to understand trees and plants and stuff. In the course of doing that, they Misbegotten also probably are Misbegotten must be enslaved by this point for sure. So Misbegotten become slaves for sure. Giants probably start having their oppression go in full swing. So America might have been like slow walking it initially because of like Godfrey, right? Like Godfrey respects battle and honor and all that. So he probably wouldn't have allowed America to be like, "You are my slaves" to the trolls so soon after they honored them and respected them with like swords and all that stuff. So that may not have been a thing, but once Godfrey's out of the picture and it's just Radigan and basically it's just Marika, then probably we start seeing the trolls treated as basically just second-class citizens, right? They're basically slaves. The Gelmer's Heroes Grave. No, that's not related to Radigan. So Radigan, there doesn't seem to be anything else really relevant then to Radigan. The sewing thing is neat, but it's more so for his characterization and his early history with Renala. I don't think it has anything to do with... Yeah, I don't see any, like, role it might have in Radigan's rule as Elden Lord. We know that Radigan vacationed here with Marika at times, much like Godfrey, because we see his portraits all around here, right? So clearly this was a vacation home where it's like, okay, you live here now, we'll put up your portrait around, stuff like that, right? So clearly, and again, these are portraits of him as Elden Lord, right? Like he's doing the pose, it's a side profile of him with his crown and stuff like that, so like, all that's true. It's also interesting because it implies that the statue of Radigan here was made after he became Elden Lord. Like, what, did he like be like, here's the design for the statue I made, honey, I know you miss me, so here's a statue of me? Did Ronnie like send over the statue to comfort her mom? I don't know. Interesting thing to consider. We're not focusing on Renala though right now. We're focusing good old Radigan. Nothing really here, right? Because basically everyone's doing their own thing. Radigan's probably the one who repairs the roads here, right? So like there's the patches of Erdtree Highway that filling in for the old Celia Summonwater Village highway, right? So it starts like here-ish, it goes from the village, so like here-ish from the village all the way down to here, and then like there's a patch I think for the first section here, and then the other section after the Kalem wall, so like here-ish. And it's like, okay, these are holes in the highway, or they're just, old, rotted, got potholes, whatever, so it's time to refurbish them. We'll do them in our Erdtree tiling, but the rest of the highway is good, so we won't touch that, right? So that seems to be what Radigan probably did, because, Godfrey ain't caring about civil engineering. Oh, maybe he did, because, supply routes, and maybe I'm being too hard on Godfrey. Chamber Center Plaza, Red Bank Castle Plaza. Southern Aeonia Swamp Bank, Heart of Aeonia, Inner Aeonia. Nothing really Radigan related we could connect to here otherwise, right? Scenic Isle, Boiled Prawns Shack, Academy Gate Town. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else to add up until Marika goes crazy. She tries breaking the Elden Ring, right? And then Radigan's like, no, honey, what are you doing? No. And then they start, like, he tries to mend it, she tries to break it, and then eventually Marika wins out, and she's like, hey, you dog, I'm the god in this relationship, not you, and we're turning this hammer around, and we are smashing this thing. And then they smash the Elden Ring, and you know the rest. So yeah, not too much to say about Radigan. Well, I guess we could mention that him and Mikola have a thing going, right? Like, Mikola makes some light rings for Radigan, which again, the ring representing completion, wholeness, you know, coming full circle. So he probably really appreciated that. And then he makes a ring spell for Mikola in return, right? So that's something. We also know to prove his fidelity and fealty. I guess both work. To prove his fealty to fundamentalism and Marika and their order and things, he took his wife's old greatsword she bestowed upon him, the Moonlight Sword, and turned it, which you know the Moonlight Greatsword, its original form, is going to appear in DLC. You know they're going to do the Bloodborne reference thing. You know it. You and I both know it, Chet. But anyway, Radigan turns the old Moonlight Sword into Marika, into Golden Order fundamentalism sword to represent the Elden Ring and all that, right? Somehow that ends up in the Misbegotten, but that's not Misbegotten's hand, but that's not important. What we're gonna focus instead on. Sorry, chat. Again, like I said, I'm tired. He does it to represent the order of fundamentalism that he's trying to tout. But yeah, that's it. I can't think of anything else. I think I've explored everything I could think of for Marika before Godfrey, right? And we've now covered everything I think I can on Radigan. Like, yeah, because he just rules over an era of peace and prosperity, right? So other than the fundamentalism shit, I don't think there's anything really to mention. I guess there's the Melania and Mikola stuff, but I think that's a little kind of a side tangent. I don't think that should be my focus. I did talk about how the Elden Ring in his chest has his crosshatch rune, but lacks all the rune arcs. I do vaguely recall that. Yes, we did when we were talking about... Yeah, rune arcs. That's the name, rune arcs. Thank you, Xavier. I couldn't remember what exactly that stupid item was called. So it's rune arcs. Okay, yeah. Because we were trying to figure out how the runes work and their role and the rune arcs and all that stuff. Yeah, so I'll have to take a closer look at the Elden Ring that Radigan has with his crosshatch. I guess the thing is, until I beat the game, I'm not going to have a good grasp of where Radigan fits in the end of the plot, right? Because I know there's theories that Radigan's actually being controlled by Marika, that Radigan's actually the one in control, and he's the one who masterminded the whole blocking our way, right? Because we have like his crosshatch thing being shown here with the thorns or whatever. Is it weird that the Golden Order Greatsword is just faith scaling, not int faith, including Marika's runes? I suppose it is in some respect, but I think maybe the idea, again, I think it was a matter of showing fealty. So, like, yes, obviously, also I destroyed your throne, sorry, Morgoth. Anyway, yes, there's the idea of, fundamentalism combining academia with faith, right? So it's not blind faith, it's theology in its, traditional sense, using reason to understand the faith. So you got the crosshatch thing here, and I think there's like an arc or something here, kind of. Hard to see. I wonder. Yeah, because it floats above, right? So like, yeah, it's not like it's in the roots. It just kind of looks that way because like parts of it are missing, but no. Impenetrable thorns, refusal. No, I think it's just more of the crosshatch, and there's a line down the middle, right? Okay. So, got the crisscrosses going. So the idea of Radigan being in control, or Marika's in control and controlling Radigan, and she's like manipulating and all that, or Radigan is actually secretly the one manipulating Gideon by pretending to be Marika. Like, there's a lot of theories going around there, and I think it would be best if I actually saw Gideon's questline and experienced the final boss battle for myself to get a real sense of maybe like how's the narrative framing this, how does this really kind of feel, what is all the information from the lore telling us, because right now I really don't know. I did talk about, let's see, is it weird that the golden, yeah, we talked about that, including Marika's rune. Oh, it includes, oh, you're right! Oh, you're right! So yeah, the center here, plus the curve at the top. Yeah, that's Marika's rune. Okay, yeah, that's right, Xavier. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, okay. So it's not just Radigan's rune. It's also Marika's rune. Gotcha, gotcha. All right, that sort of gives the idea they're working together. So then the question would be, who's the one in charge? Okay. Okay. All right, chat. I think we've covered this stuff pretty exhaustively. I've learned a lot. I hope you guys did too. Sorry for all the rambling and ranting again. I know you guys love it. I know you guys love it, but again, I apologize because I know it must be hard to follow, especially when I'm talking a mile a minute. You guys are probably like, okay, we got to put Loki on 0.5 speed on the YouTube timer just so we can follow what he's saying. Move forward. There we go. But yeah, I think that'll be all for tonight. I'm sorry for the 2 crashes. What a weird scenario where we're crashing. But hey, at least the game crashed and not my Ethernet. We had one crash actually before I started streaming. I was like, oh, the Ethernet decided to go down randomly. Okay, thanks. I hopefully you won't do that again. I was talking about it's missing from the Elden Ring, but that works out. Oh wow, Xavier, what coincidence. But yeah, that's good to know. Mike Bailey was awesome. Cheers, everyone. Again, yeah, cheers to everybody. Thank you for joining in. All right, we're going to be ending this today. Again, I don't know how often we're going to be playing Elden Ring, honestly. Because again, like I said, I kind of want to keep the meme alive where I'm never going to beat the game until the DLC are out because I'm just so slow with playing it. But, I think the more I'm helping out other content creators and I'm trying to crystallize my own thoughts, I want to go back to this old stuff and kind of like get it all, written down. And again, we've learned a lot. I think we learned a lot from this stream. So yeah, we got Radigan sewing thing. That's going to be important. I got to correct the sorcerer stuff for my Godfrey's Rain doc. Again, for those who haven't joined the Discord server, you can find the link to my website down in the description to this video. You can then go to the contact page on my website, and there will be a link to the Discord. So if you have Discord, you want to join my Discord server, you can in fact just freely join my Discord server, and that's fine. We have great people in this chat, like Xavier, like Chaotic, like Adolphus, like so many others who are constantly, you know, going in the Elden Ring chat and adding to the theory crafting that really helps contribute to not only my knowledge but to everyone else's knowledge too. I think everybody's really doing a good job in like working together and trying to really figure out the, you know, hammer down the nuances. Really love it. Anyway, I'm just gonna shut up now. Bye bye everybody. Rest well.